清高学霸，是不知道我玩的一场试探我是否拜金的游戏是吗？
后来我有打算告诉你真相，你等我回来跟你解释。我先说。
你在家等着妈妈，妈妈来接你好吗？危险，不要过去。我不会游泳，快去拿救生圈。不有空，我来医。还要讨厌你，丑鬼！小雨，你怎么能这么说妈妈？不甘心玩弄人生的人继续高高在上。已经结过婚了，而且我还有孩子。就算是我要离婚，短期之内我也不可能再婚。
苏小姐，
开玩笑吧？
医生说小少爷因为缺少母爱得了自闭症。
我的孩子小雨从不亲近我。就是救我的人吧。
Rain doesn't fall gently in this city. It comes down like it has somewhere to be. It's late afternoon, the kind where the sky looks bruised and the streetlights turn on early, pretending they're not scared of the dark. Su Yan tightens her grip on the scooter handle, knuckles pale under soaked gloves. Her delivery bag is heavy against her back, warm steam pressing through the fabric. Soup. Rice. A little box of comfort for someone who won't look her in the eyes. She rides anyway, because that's what you do when rent is due and pride doesn't pay bills. Her phone buzzes with the next order. Drop. Off. L-U. Grop. Executive. Floor. Su Yan blinks. The name lands in her chest like a cold coin. Lu Group. The skyscraper everyone talks about. The kind of building that makes the street feel smaller just by existing. Glass walls. Marble lobby. A revolving door that spins like it's too important to slow down. Su Yan has never delivered there. Not once. She checks the receipt again, swiping Rain off the screen with her sleeve. Same address, same company. Her throat tightens for a reason she can't explain yet. A few blocks later, she's there, staring up at the tower. It pierces the clouds like it's trying to escape weather entirely. The guard at the entrance looks her up and down, and the expression is familiar. Not anger, not curiosity. That thin, casual dismissal people save for anyone they assume is invisible. "Deliveries go to the side," he says, already waving her away. Su Yan forces a polite smile. "It says executive floor." The guard snorts like the words are a joke. "Executive floor doesn't order from street apps." She swallows. "It's prepaid." He hesitates, then checks the order number. His face shifts just slightly. He makes a call. His voice drops into a respectful tone that doesn't match the way he just spoke to her. A minute later, he steps aside. "Go in," he says, like it costs him something. Su Yan walks through the revolving door, and the lobby swallows her whole. Everything is glossy, quiet. Even the air feels expensive, chilled to the perfect temperature. Her wet shoes squeak on the marble, and she hates how loud that sound is. A woman at the reception desk glances up. Her lipstick is flawless. Her hair is pinned like a promise. She looks Su Yan over, and her eyes pause on the delivery bag as if it's something unpleasant. "Yes?" the receptionist asks. I have a delivery for the executive floor." The receptionist's smile is sharp. "Do you have an appointment?" "It's food." The receptionist's gaze flicks to the rain dripping from Su Yan's jacket. "Leave it here." Su Yan shakes her head. "It says deliver to the office." The receptionist exhales, annoyed, as if Su Yan is personally ruining her day. Then she makes another call, voice sugary. A security badge is printed. A temporary pass. An escort arrives. Young guy, stiff suit, eyes sliding away like he's embarrassed to be seen with her. He leads her to the elevators. As they rise, Su Yan's heartbeat starts matching the numbers lighting up above the doors. 30, 40, 50. Her palms are sweating inside her gloves, and she doesn't know why. She tells herself it's nothing, just nerves, just a fancy building. But her mind keeps tugging at one detail on the receipt. Recipient, Lu Chen. Lu Chen. Her husband's name. Her husband, who wears the same gray jacket every winter. Her husband, who counts coins at the kitchen table. Her husband, who tells her, softly, "Just one more month. I'll fix everything. I promise." The elevator dings. Executive floor. The doors open onto silence, so clean it feels like a threat. Carpet muffles her footsteps. The hall smells like coffee and expensive wood polish. Offices line the corridor. Glass walls. Minimal decor. People moving with purpose. The escort stops at a door with no sign, no label, just a fingerprint scanner. He taps in. The lock clicks. "Go ahead," he says, avoiding her eyes. Su Yan steps inside, and the room is too big for one person. Floor to ceiling windows. A city view like a kingdom. A desk the size of her dining table. Black leather chairs. A display shelf holding awards that glint under soft lighting. She stands there with her delivery bag hanging from her shoulder, rainwater dripping onto carpet that probably cost more than her scooter. Then she hears a voice. Low, calm, familiar. "I told you, I can't keep doing this." Su Yan freezes. That voice is her home. She moves forward, slow, like the room might snap shut if she breathes wrong. A private lounge area opens beyond the desk, and there, near the window, stands Lu Chen. Her, Lu Chen. But not the Lu Chen from their small apartment. This Lu Chen wears a tailored suit that fits like it was born on him. His hair is styled. His watch catches the light, flashing cold silver. He's holding a velvet box in his hand. Across from him is a woman in a white dress, delicate and glowing, like she's part of the skyline. Lu Chen opens the box. A necklace. Diamonds, bright enough to look unreal, rests inside like a secret. He lifts it gently, the way he has never lifted anything for Su Yan in years. The woman smiles, soft and triumphant. And Su Yan feels her lungs forget how to work. Lu Chen reaches up and fastens the necklace around the woman's neck. His fingertips brush her skin. Intimate. Casual. Practiced. Then he says, "I've always owed you." The woman tilts her head. "And what about your wife?" Su Yan's stomach drops. Lu Chen's expression hardens, annoyed, like the word wife is a complication, not a person. "She's nothing," he says. It was a mistake, a temporary arrangement. Suyan's vision blurs at the edges. Temporary. Arrangement. Nothing. She takes one more step, and the delivery bag strap creaks. Lu Chen turns. Their eyes meet. For half a second, he doesn't recognize her, because in his world up here, women like Suyan don't exist. Then his face shifts. Shock. Then calculation. Then something like irritation, as if she walked in on purpose. Suyan, he says, voice tight. She lifts the food bag slightly, like it's evidence in court. I'm here, she says, and her voice surprises her. It doesn't shake. It doesn't break. It's quiet, flat, deadly calm. I'm delivering your lunch. The woman by the window watches them like she's watching a show. Lu Chen takes a slow breath. Lu Chen takes a show. This isn't what it looks like. Suyan almost laughs, because it is exactly what it looks like. The office, the suit, the diamonds, the other woman, the whole life he told her didn't exist. And in that moment, something inside Suyan stops begging for answers. Instead, it starts counting exits. Suyan sets the delivery bag on the edge of his massive desk. The plastic container inside shifts with a soft thud. It's such a small sound in a room built for power. Lu Chen's gaze locks on it like he's offended by the presence of something ordinary. Suyan, he repeats, slower now, voice dropping into that tone he uses when he wants control. Why are you here? She wipes rain from her cheek with the back of her hand. I got an order. Your name was on it. He glances toward the hallway, as if checking who else might be watching. His jaw works like he's chewing through panic. The woman by the window, his first love, the one wearing diamonds, crosses her arms. So this is her. Suyan turns her head slightly. And you are? The woman smiles, slow and pretty. Someone he actually wanted. Lu Chen steps forward. Enough. But the command is weak, because he's standing between two worlds and both are staring him down. Suyan looks at him, really looks. All those nights he came home, late from side jobs. All those phone calls he stepped outside to take. All those times she offered to work extra so he could rest. He wasn't resting. He was living, just not with her. I don't understand, Suyan says, voice still quiet. Were you ever going to tell me? Lu Chen's eyes harden. It wasn't that simple. It looks simple, she says, nodding toward the necklace. You're rich. You lied. You're giving her diamonds while I'm counting grocery money. The woman laughs under her breath. He probably kept you around because you're convenient. Lu Chen shoots her a warning look, but it's too late. The sentence lands. Convenient. Suyan's mind flashes back to the day they married. No grand proposal. No ring that fit right. Just paperwork in a small office. Lu Chen's calm voice saying, I'll take care of you. She remembers believing him. She remembers the relief of not being alone. She looks at him now and realizes the truth. He didn't save her. He adopted her. Like a charity project. Like a test. Like entertainment. Lu Chen steps closer, lowering his voice. Suyan, listen. I hid my identity because I needed to know you loved me for me. She stares at him. So you lied to test me. It was protection. No, she says, and this time her voice sharpens. It was control. He flinches, like the word hits him harder than he expected. The woman at the window lifts a hand, admiring her necklace. Honestly, Lu Chen, you should end it. She looks like she doesn't belong in this building. Suyan's eyes flick to the woman's reflection in the glass. Then back to Lu Chen. You brought me here, she says. Maybe not on purpose, but you brought me into your truth. Lu Chen reaches out like he's going to take her arm. Let's talk at home. Suyan steps back before his fingers can touch her. Home. Their home is a small apartment with peeling paint, a kitchen light that flickers, and a couch they bought secondhand. Home is where she waited for him. Home is where she believed his stories. Home is where he rehearsed being poor. I'm not going back there with you, she says. Lu Chen's face tightens. Don't make this dramatic. Suyan's lips press together, and she feels something strange, relief. Because she's not dramatic, she's done. She slides her phone out, taps the delivery app, and marks the order as completed. Lu Chen stares at her, stunned by the simplicity of it. "Is that it?" he asks. Su Yan nods. "That's it." The woman laughs again, as if Su Yan is a joke that refuses to understand her place. Then the door opens behind Su Yan. Two assistants step in, carrying folders. They stop short when they see her, eyes widening. One of them whispers, "Who is that?" Lu Chen snaps, "Get out." But the moment already exists. It's already real. Su Yan turns toward the assistants, then back to Lu Chen. "I was your wife," she says, loud enough for the room to hear. "And you called me nothing." Lu Chen's throat moves as he swallows. "I didn't mean. You meant it," Su Yan interrupts. "You said it when you thought I couldn't hear." Her fingers brush the strap of her bag. She can still feel the weight of the rain outside, the cold air waiting for her like a clean slate. Lu Chen's voice drops again, urgent. "If you leave right now, you'll regret it." Su Yan stares at him. Then she smiles. Not happy. Not kind. Just certain. "I already regret staying." She reaches into her pocket, pulls out her key ring. A cheap metal ring with a worn house key attached. She steps forward and places it on his desk. It looks absurd there. Tiny, scratched, powerless. Yet it's the loudest thing she's done all day. Lu Chen's eyes flick down to it like it's poison. Su Yan turns and walks out. In the hallway, the escort tries to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a warning, but she keeps moving. The elevator doors close, sealing her away from him. As she descends, her heartbeat slows, not because the pain is gone, but because she has finally chosen herself. When the elevator opens in the lobby, the receptionist looks up, ready to dismiss her again. Then she notices Su Yan's expression, and she doesn't say a word. Su Yan stepped back into the rain, and the storm hits her face like a baptism. She climbs onto her scooter. Her phone buzzes. A message from Lu Chen. "Comb, home, we need to talk." Su Yan stares at it, then turns off the screen. A second buzz. Another message. "Don't do this." A third. Su Yan. She breathes in, rain filling her lungs, cold and sharp. Then she rides forward, not away from him, toward a life where she doesn't have to beg to be seen. At the next red light, her phone buzzes again. This time, it's not Lu Chen. It's a notification from her bank app. A transfer. A huge number. More money than she's ever held in her life. Sender, Lu Chen. Su Yan's hands tighten on the handlebars. Because money is his language. Control disguised as comfort. And she already knows what he's trying to do. Buy the moment back. Undo her decision with zeros. The light turns green. Su Yan accelerates, and she whispers to herself, the words steady in the rain, "No." Su Yan doesn't go home. No. Su Yan doesn't go home. Not their apartment. Not his staged little poor husband world. She goes to the only place that has ever felt honest. A 24-hour noodle shop under a buzzing street sign where the chairs wobble and nobody pretends to be better than they are. She sits in a corner booth, damp hair stuck to her cheeks, staring at the bank transfer on her phone like it's a snake. The waitress sets down hot tea without asking questions. Steam rises. Her hands hover over the cup, craving warmth, but her body won't relax. Because the pain hasn't faded. It's just organized itself. Like a filing cabinet in her chest, labeled with every lie. A message pops up again. "Lu Chen. I can explain." She doesn't reply. Across the street, headlights streak through rain. People hurry. Umbrellas tilt. Life keeps going, like her world didn't just split in half. Su Yan's phone vibrates with a call. Now? Unknown number. She hesitates, then answers. A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "Ms. Su Yan?" "Yes." "This is the legal department from Lu Group. We'd like to schedule a meeting." Su Yan's stomach clenches. A meeting for what? A pause, like the woman is choosing words. "Regarding your marital status." Su Yan's pulse spikes. "What does that mean?" "It means," the woman says, "Mr. Lu would like you to sign divorce papers." For a second, Su Yan can't hear the restaurant anymore. No dishes clinking, no rain, no voices, Just that sentence. He wants her to sign. Not him begging. Not him apologizing. Him still steering the car, even after he crashed it. Him still steering the car, even after he crashed it. Su-Yan's throat tightens. He wants a divorce? Yes, the woman replies smoothly. We can offer you a generous settlement. Settlement. Like she's a contract. A clause. A mistake to be corrected. Su-Yan's fingers curl around her teacup until it burns. Tell him, Su-Yan says, voice low. I'll sign. The woman sounds relieved. Excellent. We'll send a driver. No driver. Su-Yan snaps. Send the papers. I'll come. She hangs up. For a moment, she just sits there, letting the tea steam fog her vision. Then she laughs once. Small, bitter. Because the truth is, she already decided. The divorce isn't a threat. It's a door. And if he wants to open it, she'll walk through first. The next morning, the rain is gone. But the city still feels wet, washed out, like everything is holding its breath. Su-Yan walks into a law office downtown. Not Lu Group's office. Neutral ground. She wears a plain sweater, hair tied back. No makeup. No jewelry. No armor. Just her spine. Inside, the conference room smells like paper and expensive air freshener. A folder sits on the table, thick with pages. Lu Chen is already there. He stands when she enters. For a second, he looks like the man she married. Careful eyes, soft mouth. Then the mask returns. The billionaire mask. The man who expects the world to negotiate. Su-Yan, he says, trying for calm. Thank you for coming. She sits without greeting him. You wanted me to sign. His jaw tightens. His jaw tightens. I think it's best. Best for who? He exhales. For you, for me, for everyone. Su-Yan opens the folder. Divorce agreement. Settlement amount. It's massive. It's insulting. Because it's proof he believes money can erase memory. Lu Chen watches her read. You'll be taken care of. Su-Yan looks up. I wasn't taken care of when I thought you were broke. That's not fair. She taps the paper. This is fair. Lu Chen leans forward. Su-Yan, I hid who I was, yes. But I never stopped providing. She stares at him. You provided lies. Silence spreads between them. Then a second door opens. A woman enters. White dress again. But now she wears a tailored coat. Diamond necklace still on her neck like a flag. She smiles at Su-Yan, too pleased. Oh good, she came. Su-Yan's eyes narrow. So you're here too? Lu Chen's voice hardens. She's involved? Involved? Involved in my marriage? Su-Yan asks. The woman sits beside Lu Chen without permission. Involved in his life. The real one. Su-Yan's fingers rest on the signature line. And suddenly, she understands something clean and simple. This isn't just cheating. This is humiliation with intention. A performance. Lu Chen clears his throat. The settlement is generous. Sign, and we can end this quietly. Quietly. So the world never knows he played. Poor husband for fun, so the company image stays polished. So Su-Yan becomes a ghost with a bank account. Su-Yan picks up the pen. Lu Chen's shoulders loosen, just a fraction, like he's winning. The woman's smile widens. Then Su-Yan sets the pen down. I'll sign, she says. Lu Chen nods. Good, but not this. His eyes narrow. What? Su-Yan flips the page back, taps a clause. This agreement says I can't speak publicly about our marriage. Lu Chen's gaze sharpens. Standard. It also says I waive any claim to marital assets beyond the settlement. Lu Chen's voice cools. Also standard. Su-Yan leans back. So, you want to buy my silence and keep your empire untouched? The woman scoffs. What do you think you deserve? You married him when he had nothing. Su-Yan looks at her. He never had nothing. She turns to Lu Chen. You lied about your finances. You lied about your identity. You lied about your loyalty. Lu Chen's eyes flash. Be careful. Su-Yan smiles slightly. You're threatening me in a law office? Lu Chen's expression shifts. He catches himself. Smooths it out. I'm warning you, he says, not to make this harder than it needs to be. Su-Yan stands. The chair scrapes the floor. Loud, ugly, real. I'll sign, she repeats, after my lawyer reviews this. Lu Chen's face tightens. You have a lawyer? Su Yan meets his eyes. I will. The woman laughs. With what money? Your scooter? Su Yan's gaze stays steady. With the transfer you sent me last night. Lu Chen stiffens. Because he forgot. Or he assumed she wouldn't use it against him. Su Yan picks up the folder and closes it. I'll be in touch. Lu Chen rises, frustration slipping through. Su Yan, don't do this. She pauses at the door. Don't do what? Don't turn this into a war. Su Yan turns back, voice calm as ice. You started it when you called me nothing. She leaves. And outside, the city feels different. Same buildings, same traffic. But her steps are heavier, more certain. Because she's not just divorcing a man, she's divorcing a whole illusion. War doesn't begin with explosions. Sometimes it begins with paperwork. Su Yan finds a lawyer, not a fancy one, but sharp. A woman with tired eyes and a voice that doesn't bend. They sit in a small office above a pharmacy, the air smelling faintly like antiseptic and printer ink. The lawyer flips through Lu Chen's agreement page by page, and her eyebrows lift higher with each clause. This is aggressive, the lawyer says. Su Yan watches her. Meaning? Meaning, he's trying to trap you. The lawyer taps the confidentiality section. He wants you quiet. He wants you gone. And he wants you to sign that you were never anything more than an inconvenience. Su Yan's chest tightens. Can I fight it? The lawyer's gaze sharpens. Do you want to? Su Yan thinks of the lobby, the receptionist look, the way Lu Chen's eyes changed when he realized she'd seen him. She remembers the necklace clicking shut around another woman's throat. I want my dignity, Su Yan says. The lawyer nods once. Then we negotiate, and we prepare for him to get nasty. Su Yan's phone buzzes again. Lu Chen, I'm trying to do this, peacefully. She doesn't respond. A different number calls. She answers. A man's voice this time, cold and official. Ms. Su Yan, we're calling from your landlord's office. We received notice that your lease will not be renewed. Su Yan frowns. What notice? From the property owner, the man says. Effective immediately, you have 30 days. 30 days. Her apartment. The place she thought was real. Su Yan hangs up and just sits there, staring at nothing. Her lawyer watches her carefully. That's him. Su Yan's mouth opens, then closes. Because she wants to deny it. But she knows. Lu Chen's world solves problems with money and pressure. He can't control her heart anymore, so he'll control her surroundings. That night, Su Yan returns to the apartment to pack essentials. The hallway smells like damp concrete and old cooking oil. Inside, everything is the same. Small table, worn couch, cheap curtains. But now, it feels staged, like a set after filming ends. She opens the closet, pulls out a suitcase, and starts folding clothes with steady hands. A knock hits the door, hard. She freezes. Another knock. Then Lu Chen's voice through the wood. Open up. Su Yan doesn't move. The lock rattles, someone trying a key. Then it stops. A new sound, the deadbolt turning. Su Yan's blood runs cold. He has a key. Of course he does. The door opens. Lu Chen steps inside like he owns the air. He's not wearing a suit now. He's wearing the gray jacket again, the old version of himself. The costume. His eyes sweep the room, landing on the suitcase. You're leaving. Su Yan keeps folding. The lease isn't being renewed. Lu Chen's jaw tightens. So you know. She looks up. Did you do it? His gaze flickers. I'm protecting you. Su Yan laughs once, bitter. From what? My own choices. He steps closer. From poverty. She stands facing him. You should have thought of that before you pretended to be poor. Lu Chen's expression cracks, anger finally breaking through the polished surface. I did what I had to do, he snaps. You don't understand the kind of life I have. Su Yan's voice stays steady. I didn't even know you had one. Silence. Then he lowers his voice, dangerous soft. Sign the paper, Su Yan. No. His eyes darken. You think this is a game? I think you're scared, she says. Because if I don't sign your silence clause, your perfect image gets messy. Lu Chen's nostrils flare. I can make your life very difficult. Su-Yan's heartbeat slams, but she doesn't step back. You already did, she whispers, and I survived. Lu Chen's gaze hardens. Then, slowly, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a new set of papers. He throws them on the table. These are updated, he says. More money, better terms. Su-Yan looks at them. Still silence? His mouth tightens. Yes. Su-Yan shakes her head. Then, no. Lu Chen leans forward, voice rising. You don't get to say no to me. Su-Yan's eyes flash. I just did. For a moment, it looks like he might grab her arm, like the billionaire mask might slip all the way off. Then his phone rings. He answers, abrupt. Yeah? A pause. His face changes. Not anger now, alarm. He glances at Su-Yan, then turns away, lowering his voice. What do you mean the board heard? Su-Yan's stomach tightens. Board. The company. Something is moving without him. Lu Chen listens, jaw clenched. Then he ends the call and stares at Su-Yan like she did something. You talked, he accuses. Su-Yan shakes her head. I didn't. Lu Chen's eyes narrow. He's calculating. Then who did? Su-Yan looks at the table. At the papers. At the life he built on secrets. And she realizes something terrifying. She isn't the only one who can pull threads. And Lu Chen's empire is made of them. The next week moves like a chain reaction. One push. Then everything rattles. Su-Yan sleeps on a friend's couch for 2 nights, then finds a tiny room to rent above a bakery. The air smells like sugar and yeast every morning, and it's the first comforting thing she's felt in days. Her lawyer sends a counteroffer to Lu Chen's team. No silence clause, transparent accounting, a fair division. Lu Chen's response arrives in less than an hour. Not a negotiation. A warning dressed up as legal language. They threaten delays. They threaten reputational consequences. They threaten to bury her under court fees until she gives up. Su-Yan reads it with her lawyer, and something in her chest steadies. Because this isn't love anymore. This is a man fighting to keep ownership. Meanwhile, rumors start spreading online. Not from Su-Yan. She doesn't post. But the internet doesn't need her permission. A short clip appears on social media, shaky footage of a woman in a delivery jacket walking into an elevator at Lu Group. The caption reads, CEO's secret wife. Su-Yan watches it once, then turns off her phone. But she can't unsee how fast the world reacts. Because billionaires can hide a lot. But they can't hide public curiosity. Lu Chen calls her that night. She doesn't answer. He calls again. Again. Finally, she picks up. What? She says. Lu Chen's voice is tight. Did you leak anything? No, I don't believe you. Su-Yan laughs softly. You never believed me. That's the point, right? He exhales hard. This is spiraling. It's your spiral, she says. You built it. Lu Chen's voice lowers. You don't know what you're doing. Su-Yan stares out the small window of her new room. Below, a couple walks past holding hands, sharing an umbrella. I know exactly what I'm doing, she says. I'm leaving you. Lu Chen goes quiet. Then his tone shifts, suddenly softer, almost pleading. Su-Yan, I didn't mean what I said. She blinks. Which part? The nothing part. Su-Yan closes her eyes. Because here it is. The moment where he tries to reverse time with words, but she remembers the way he said it. Not like a mistake. Like a truth he was tired of hiding. You meant it, she says. And even if you didn't, you still did it. Lu Chen's voice cracks with frustration. I was under pressure. I was under pressure for years, Su-Yan replies. And I didn't betray you. A pause. Then Lu Chen says, the thing he thinks will work. I can change. Su-Yan's laugh is quieter now. Sadder. You already did. Just not into someone better. She hangs up. The next morning, Su-Yan's lawyer calls her into the office. There's something you should see, the lawyer says, sliding a document across the desk. It's a corporate memo leaked, unofficial but real enough. It mentions executive conduct. It mentions brand risk. It mentions a concealed marital relationship. Lu Chen's board is panicking. Su Yan's lawyer watches her. This gives you leverage. Su Yan's fingers rest on the paper. Leverage! She hates the word, because it makes her feel like she's playing the same game Lu Chen plays, but she's not trying to win money. She's trying to win freedom. What do we do? Su Yan asks. The lawyer's voice is calm. We pushed for a clean divorce. Public record. No gag order. No gag order. And we document everything he's done. Housing pressure, intimidation, financial manipulation. Su Yan nods. Then she says quietly, I don't want revenge. The lawyer meets her eyes. Good. Revenge burns the person holding it. Su Yan swallows. I just want him to stop touching my life. The lawyer nods once. Then we make the law the wall between you. That afternoon, Su Yan receives a message from an unknown account. A photo. Lu Chen hugging the woman in white entering a hotel. Time-stamped. Clear. Then a second message. He did this before you. He'll do it after you. Su Yan's hands tremble. Not because she's shocked, but because she realizes she's not the only victim of his tests. Someone else hates him enough to feed her ammunition. And that means Lu Chen isn't just fighting Su Yan, he's fighting his own past. That night, Su Yan stands outside Lu Group again, not as a delivery worker, as herself. She looks up at the tower. The windows glow like eyes. And she understands the truth with sharp clarity. To Lu Chen, love is a transaction. Trust is a weakness. People are pieces. But she's not a piece anymore. She turns away from the building and walks toward the courthouse where her lawyer filed the next motion. Each step is heavy. Each step is real. And behind her, high above the street, Lu Chen watches from his office window. And for the first time, he looks small. Court day arrives with a sky so bright it feels cruel. Sunlight bounces off glass buildings like nothing bad has ever happened in them. Su Yan stands outside the courthouse in a simple blouse and dark pants, hands clasped to keep them from shaking. Her lawyer stands beside her, steady as stone. Remember, she says, he'll try to provoke you. Don't give him emotion. Give him facts. Su Yan nods. Inside, the courtroom is cold. Not dramatic cold. Administrative cold, like pain handled efficiently. Lu Chen arrives 10 minutes late. Of course he does. He walks in wearing a suit that screams money, but his eyes look tired pale around the edges. The woman in white isn't with him today. Instead, he's surrounded by attorneys. A wall of paperwork. A fortress. Lu Chen looks at Su Yan across the aisle. For a second, something almost human flickers in his face. Then his jaw sets, and the billionaire returns. The proceedings begin. Su Yan's lawyer presents documentation, the lease pressure, the aggressive gag clauses, the transfer used as leverage, the pattern of intimidation. Lu Chen's attorneys argue back. Private matter, mutual misunderstanding, settlement offered in good faith. Then Lu Chen speaks. He stands, smooth voice filling the room. I loved my wife, he says, and Su Yan nearly flinches at the word wife on his tongue. I made mistakes, but I never intended harm. Su Yan keeps her gaze forward. The judge asks Su Yan if she wishes to speak. Her lawyer looks at her gently. Su Yan stands. Her legs feel like water for a moment, then she steadies. I don't care about his money, she says, voice clear. I cared about the truth. Lu Chen's gaze sharpens. Su Yan continues. He told me he was poor. He let me work more. He watched me worry. He watched me sacrifice. Her throat tightens, but she pushes through. And the day I found out, I didn't find out because he confessed. I found out because I delivered food to his office. A quiet ripple moves through the room. Su Yan turns slightly toward Lu Chen. I heard him call me nothing, she says. So I decided to be nothing to him. Lu Chen's mouth tightens. Su Yan faces the judge again. I want a divorce with no gag order, she says. No private deal that turns my life into his property. I want the record to show the truth. Lu Chen's attorney stands quickly. Your Honor, the judge raises a hand. Then the judge looks at Lu Chen. "Mr. Lu," the judge says evenly, "do you understand the risk you create by insisting on confidentiality in a case already exposed to public rumor?" Lu Chen's eyes flicker. He understands. He just doesn't like being cornered. Su Yan watches him in that stretched time way, like the world is holding one long breath. This is the moment. Not when she signs. Not when she leaves. This is the moment when Lu Chen has to choose control or closure. Lu Chen's jaw flexes. He looks at Su Yan and something changes in his gaze. Not love, not regret, but recognition. He finally sees she won't bend. He turns to his attorneys, whispers something sharp. They look surprised. Then his lead attorney stands. "Your Honor," the attorney says. "Mr. says, Mr. J." Lu is willing to proceed without a confidentiality clause. Su Yan's breath catches. The judge nods slowly. Noted. Lu Chen sits back down. His posture is stiff, controlled, but his eyes don't leave Su Yan. The hearing ends with directions for final filings. Outside the courtroom, reporters linger at a distance, hungry but cautious. Su Yan walks out with her lawyer, sunlight hitting her face. Lu Chen steps into the hallway behind her. "Su Yan," he calls. She stops. Not because she owes him anything, because she wants to hear what kind of man he is when he has nothing left to threaten her with. He approaches slowly, no lawyers between them now. His voice is quiet. "Is this what you wanted?" Su Yan studies him. "I wanted the truth," she says. "You made it a fight." Lu Chen's eyes lower for a second. "I never thought you'd leave." Su Yan nods once. "That was your problem." He swallows. "I did love you." Su Yan's expression softens, not into forgiveness, but into understanding. "You loved how safe I was," she says. "How quiet, how easy to control." Lu Chen's face tightens. Su Yan steps back. "I'm not that woman anymore." She turns to go. Lu Chen's voice follows, rougher. "So that's it? You're just done?" Su Yan pauses at the courthouse doors. She looks back one last time. "Lu Chen," she says, "you called me nothing." Her voice stays calm. But nothing can still walk away. And she leaves him standing there in the light, surrounded by consequences he can't buy off fast enough. 2 months later, Su Yan's life is quieter. Not easy, not magical, but real. She wakes up above the bakery to the smell of fresh bread and the sound of laughter downstairs. She makes coffee in a small kitchen that belongs entirely to her. No hidden cameras of judgment, no lies folded into the corners, no husband playing a role. She finds a new job. Steady, not glamorous. Office admin work for a logistics company. The irony isn't lost on her. She still helps move things from one place to another. But now she moves her own future. Sometimes she catches herself waiting for Lu Chen to text, the muscle memory of being pulled toward him. Then she remembers the lobby, the diamonds, the word nothing, and the waiting fades. One afternoon, she passes a jewelry store window. A necklace display glitters inside, bright under perfect lighting. For a second, the old ache twists in her chest. Then she keeps walking, because she understands the difference now. Diamonds are not apologies. Money is not love. A week later, she receives a final envelope from her lawyer. The divorce is complete. No gag order, no secret causes. Just a clean legal end. Su Yan holds the paper in both hands and feels the strange weight of closure. It's not joy. It's not triumph. It's the feeling of taking off a coat you didn't realize was choking you. That night, she goes to the noodle shop again. The same one where she sat soaked and shaking, staring at a bank transfer like it was a threat. She sits in the same booth. The waitress brings tea again, no questions asked. Steam rises. This time, Su Yan wraps her hands around the cup and actually feels the warmth. Her phone buzzes. A notification. News article headline, LU Group CEO, under board. Review, amid personal conduct. Controversy. Su Yan doesn't click it, not because she's afraid, because it doesn't matter anymore. Lu Chen's downfall, if it comes, belongs to his choices, not her. She pays for her meal and steps outside. The air is cold but clear. No rain. The city lights reflect off dry pavement, steady and sharp. She walks past a delivery scooter parked near the curb. A young woman in a rain jacket climbs on, adjusting her bag. The woman's face is tired, determined. Su Yan watches her for a moment and feels an unexpected wave of tenderness, because she recognizes that kind of exhaustion, that kind of hope. Su Yan reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small item. Not a diamond, not a gift from a billionaire. A cheap keychain she bought at a street market last week. It's simple. Metal ring, small charm shaped like a tiny door. She clips it onto her keys. A symbol she chose herself. A reminder that exits are not failures. They're freedom. As she walks home, her phone buzzes again. A message. From Lu Chin. She hasn't blocked him, not because she wants him, but because she doesn't fear him. The message reads, "I'm sorry." 2 words. Too late. Su Yan stares at the screen. She feels the old reflex, wanting to respond, wanting to explain, wanting to make it okay. Then she breathes out and lets that reflex die. She doesn't type back. She doesn't curse him. She doesn't send a speech. She simply turns the phone face down in her pocket and keeps walking. Above her, the city hums. Traffic, distant voices, the low roar of life continuing. Su Yan reaches the stairs to the bakery apartment. The smell of warm bread drifts out as someone opens the shop door below. She pauses on the first step. For a moment, she hears the echo of her old self, the woman who thought love meant endurance, the woman who thought being chosen meant being kept. Then she lifts her chin and climbs, because now she knows the truth that took her years to learn. If someone has to hide who they are, to test your love, they were never worthy of it. Inside her apartment, she sets her keys on the counter. The tiny door charm clinks softly, a small sound. In a small room, in a life that finally belongs to her. And outside, somewhere far above street level, in a glass tower built on secrets. A man can stare at a skyline and still feel empty. But Su Yan sleeps in peace. I used to believe that love was simple, that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and kept your promises, love would stay. I believed marriage was built on honesty, on shared struggles, on growing together. That belief died the day I walked into that building. The building wasn't supposed to exist in my life. A glass tower cutting through the sky, cold, perfect, untouchable. The kind of place people like me don't enter unless we're delivering something. I was carrying a lunchbox, cheap plastic, still warm. I remember thinking, he must be hungry. My husband always said his office was small. That business was slow. That money was tight. I believed him, because I loved him. The security guard didn't stop me. He didn't even look surprised. That should have been my first warning. The elevator doors closed, and as I rose higher, my heart started beating faster. Not from excitement, from fear. Something felt wrong. The doors opened to a floor that looked like it belonged to another world. Marble floors, crystal lights, silence that screamed money. And then I saw him. Not the man who came home tired. Not the man who wore the same old watch every day. I saw a stranger. He stood tall in a tailored suit that probably cost more than our entire apartment. Confident, relaxed, powerful. And he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him. Elegant, beautiful, smiling like she owned the place. He leaned closer to her. Too close. I froze. My hands tightened around the lunchbox as I watched him open a velvet box. Inside, diamond jewelry. Bright enough to hurt my eyes. He put it on her, gently, intimately. The way he used to touch me years ago. The woman laughed. He smiled back. That smile destroyed everything. In that moment, I understood something terrifying. I didn't just marry a poor man. I married a liar. My chest felt hollow, like someone had reached inside and removed my heart without warning. But strangely, I didn't cry. I watched. I listened. I saw the truth I was never meant to see. My husband wasn't struggling. He was a billionaire. And I wasn't his wife. I was his secret. The woman kissed his cheek and walked away, heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. He turned, and finally saw me. His face changed. Shock. Fear. And then, annoyance. Not guilt. Not regret. Annoyance. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Not. Are you okay?" "Not. Let me explain. Just, why are you here?" That was the moment my love died completely. I placed the lunchbox on the table between us. "I brought you food," I said calmly. My voice surprised even me. My voice surprised even me. He looked at the box like it offended him. "This isn't the place for this," he said. "That sentence told me everything." I nodded. "You're right," I replied. "This isn't the place for me either." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard him call my name, but for the first time, I didn't stop. Because when a woman finally sees the truth, love doesn't beg. It leaves. And that was only the beginning. I didn't cry on the way home. That surprised me. I expected tears, screaming, questions without answers, but all I felt was silence. The apartment door closed behind me, and the sound echoed longer than it should have. The room looked the same, small, worn, familiar. But now it felt like a stage set, a lie. I had been living inside. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. These hands had cooked for him, waited for him, believed in him. I thought about every excuse he ever gave me. The company isn't doing well. Next year will be better. I don't want money to change us. He wasn't protecting our love. He was protecting his control. That night, he didn't come home. I expected that too. The next morning, my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. I answered. "Where did you go yesterday?" he asked, like he was questioning an employee who arrived late. "No apology," I said calmly. "No explanation." "That's impressive." There was a pause. "You misunderstood what you saw," he replied. I almost laughed. "Did I misunderstand the diamonds too?" I asked. "Or the woman?" "She's irrelevant," he said quickly. "You're my wife." That word meant nothing now. "You lied to me," I said, "for years." "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to change," he argued. "Money complicates things." "No," I corrected him. "Lies do." He exhaled, irritated. "Come home tonight," he said. "We'll talk." "I am home," I replied. "You just never lived here." I hung up before he could respond. That afternoon, I did something he never expected. I went to a lawyer. Sitting there, signing papers, I felt something strange rise in my chest. Relief. The lawyer looked at me and asked, "Are you sure?" I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. When he received the divorce papers, he showed up immediately. Expensive car, perfect suit, that same confident posture. But his eyes betrayed him. He didn't think I'd dare. "This is ridiculous," he said, standing in the middle of the apartment. "You're emotional." "No," I replied. "I'm awake." "You want money?" he asked. "I'll give you anything." I looked at him, really looked at him. For years, I thought he was humble. Now, I saw the truth. He believed everything had a price. "I don't want your money," I said. "I want my life back." He laughed, disbelief flashing across his face. "You think you can survive without me?" That question burned. I stepped closer. "I survived with a stranger for years," I said quietly. "I think I'll be just fine without him." For the first time, he had nothing to say. As he walked out, his confidence cracked, and I realized something powerful. The man who thought he owned everything had just lost the one thing he could never buy: my freedom. The days after he left were quiet. Too quiet. No angry messages. No sudden apologies. No dramatic promises to change. That silence told me he was planning something. Men like him don't lose control gracefully. They wait. I started rebuilding my life from the smallest pieces. I updated my resume, opened a new bank account, packed my clothes into boxes like I was packing away an old version of myself. Every object I touched carried a memory. Some hurt. Some felt meaningless now. What shocked me most wasn't the pain. It was how light I felt. Like I'd been holding my breath for years without realizing it. Then the rumors started. Friends called me, voices low and careful. "Do you know what people are saying about you?" I did. They said I was greedy, ungrateful, that I used him and ran when I got bored. He was rewriting our story. In his version, I was the villain. I expected anger to rise inside me. It didn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't living for public approval. I was living for truth. A week later, I got an invitation. A charity gala. His name was on it, and beneath it, in elegant print, Guest of Honor. I knew what it meant. He wanted to remind me who had power. So I went. Not in borrowed clothes, not hiding in the corner. I walked in alone. Heads turned. Whispers followed. Then he saw me. His confident smile froze for half a second. He hadn't expected that. He approached me with a glass of champagne, acting like we were strangers who shared a pleasant past. "You look well," he said. "I am," I replied. "You look busy pretending." His jaw tightened. "Still angry?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "Just done." The woman from the office stood nearby, watching, measuring. He leaned closer. "You could have had all of this," he whispered. I looked around the room. Money, laughter, empty eyes. "I had something better," I said. "I had myself. You just never deserved her." That was when the mask slipped. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. I smiled. "No," I answered. "You will. Because one day, you'll wake up with everything and realize no one loves you without conditions." I turned and walked away again. But this time, I didn't feel broken. I felt untouchable. Because the strongest revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming someone they can never control again. After the gala, my name stopped being whispered. It started being watched. Opportunities appeared where walls used to be. People who ignored me before suddenly wanted meetings. Not because of him, because I no longer belonged to him. I found work at a small consulting firm. Nothing glamorous, nothing flashy. Just honest work, long hours, real effort. For the first time in my life, every dollar I earned felt clean. No lies attached, no shadows following it home. Then the pressure came. Anonymous messages, subtle threats disguised as concern. "You should reconsider. Divorce can get messy. He's not someone you want as an enemy." I read them all, then deleted them. He still thought fear worked on me. He was wrong. The court date arrived quietly. No drama, no crowd. Just two people sitting across from each other, pretending they once loved. He looked confident walking in, relaxed, like this was a business negotiation he would easily win. I looked calm. That unsettled him more than anger ever could. When the judge asked if we wanted to reconsider, he answered first. "I'm willing to be generous," he said. "Extremely generous." Everyone looked at me. I shook my head. "I don't want generosity," I said. "I want honesty." And this marriage never had it. For the first time, his money couldn't interrupt. The papers were signed. Just like that. Years ended with a pen. Outside the courthouse, he stopped me. "You think this makes you strong?" he said. "But you walked away from power." I met his eyes. "No," I replied. "I walked away from a cage you decorated with gold." He stood there as I left, still rich, still powerful, but smaller. Weeks later, I heard the rumors about him. Bad investments. Board members questioning his leadership. The woman from the office already gone. Turns out, when you build your life on lies, everything collapses at once. One evening, as I locked my apartment door, my apartment, I smiled. Not because he fell, but because I rose. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. And I finally had it. Peace changes you. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It changes the way you wake up in the morning. I stopped checking my phone first thing. Stopped bracing myself for disappointment. Stopped expecting love to hurt. My life became smaller and somehow richer. Work filled my days. Books filled my nights. Silence filled the spaces where anxiety used to live. Then, one evening, I ran into someone from my past, an old friend. Someone who knew me before marriage turned me invisible. "You look different," she said. I smiled. "I finally feel like myself again." She hesitated. "Do you ever miss him?" The question surprised me. I thought about it carefully. "I miss who I thought he was," I said, "but that man never existed." That truth settled deep inside me. One afternoon, I received a message I didn't expect. From him. not a demand, not a threat, a confession. I underestimated you. I thought you'd come back. I don't know how to live without control. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed one sentence. That's not my problem anymore, and blocked the number. That moment felt like closing the final door. I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I was free. Months passed. I grew. I learned. I laughed again. Real laughter, not polite survival laughter. Love didn't return immediately, and that was okay. Because for the first time, I understood something important. Love isn't proven by sacrifice. It's proven by respect. And anyone who asks you to shrink so they can feel bigger doesn't love you. They own you. I stood by my window one night, city lights glowing below, and realized I didn't lose a billionaire husband. I gained myself. And that will always be the greatest wealth of all. Freedom doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in quiet moments you don't expect. Like the first time I walked past a jewelry store and didn't feel small. Like the first time I made a decision without explaining it to anyone. Like the first time I said no and didn't feel guilty. I began to notice how much of my old life was built on permission. Permission to speak. Permission to rest. Permission to matter. I stopped asking. One night, after a long day at work, I sat alone in a cafe. The kind of place he would have called a waste of time. Soft music played. People laughed at nearby tables, and suddenly, I felt it. Happiness. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind you post online, the quiet kind that settles in your chest and stays. That's when I realized something painful and beautiful. I had been lonely in my marriage, but I wasn't lonely anymore. I started mentoring younger women at work. Women who reminded me of my past self-quiet, capable, unsure of their worth. I never told them my full story. I didn't need to. I just told them this. Never confuse comfort with love. And never confuse control with protection. They listened. Weeks later, I ran into him one last time. By accident. A crosswalk. Red light. Two people facing opposite directions. He looked older. Not physically. Internally. Success still followed him. Money still obeyed him. But peace avoided him. He looked at me, searching for something. Regret, validation, forgiveness. I gave him none. When the light turned green, I crossed the street. He didn't follow. And that was how it ended. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with two people choosing different lives. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. They end with clarity. And clarity is powerful, because once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Clarity has consequences. Once you stop lying to yourself, you can't tolerate lies from anyone else. That realization reshaped my world. I became more selective. With my time. With my energy. With the people I let close. Some friendships faded quietly. They were built on the version of me who always agreed, always gave, always stayed silent. I let them go without explanation. Growth doesn't ask for permission. At work, I was offered a promotion, more responsibility, more visibility. The old me would have hesitated, would have wondered if I deserved it. The new me didn't flinch. I'll take it, I said, not because I needed to prove anything, but because I trusted myself. That trust was new, fragile, but real. One evening, while sorting old documents, I found our marriage certificate, thin paper. Heavy memories. I studied our names printed side by side. Once, that page felt permanent. Now, it felt like a lesson. I didn't tear it up. I didn't burn it. I folded it carefully and placed it in a box. Some things don't need destruction. They just need closure. That night, I dreamed for the first time in years. Not about him. Not about loss. I dreamed about places I hadn't been yet. Possibility replaced fear. And that's when I understood the final truth. He didn't break me. He revealed me. Stronger, clearer, unafraid of walking away. Because the bravest thing a woman can do is choose herself in a world that benefits from her silence. People think healing is dramatic. That one day you wake up whole. They're wrong. Healing is repetitive, unremarkable, quietly brave. It's choosing yourself again and again, even on days when no one is watching. There were moments I doubted my decision, not because I missed him, but because independence is heavy before it becomes light. Bills arrived. Deadlines stacked up. Life demanded accountability without a safety net. And yet, I never once thought about going back. Because peace, even when it's hard, is still better than comfort built on lies. One night, I was invited to speak at a small women's event. Nothing big, no cameras, just a room full of listening eyes. They asked me to talk about resilience. I didn't prepare a speech, I just told the truth. I thought love meant endurance, I said. But love is not measured by how much pain you survive. It's measured by how safe you are allowed to be. Some of them cried, so did I. Not from sadness, from recognition. After the event, a young woman pulled me aside. "How did you know when to leave?" she asked. I looked at her trembling hands. "You know when staying cost you your self-respect," I said softly. That answer came from experience, from scars that no longer hurt. As I walked home that night, I felt something settle inside me. Purpose. My pain wasn't wasted. It became language. It became strength. It became a bridge for others still trapped in silence. And for the first time, I didn't see my past as something to escape. I saw it as something that forged me, not into someone bitter, but into someone unbreakable. Time did what distance alone never could. It softened the sharp edges of memory, not by erasing them, but by putting them in perspective. I no longer replayed arguments in my head, no longer imagined alternate endings where he apologized, changed, or suddenly understood. I didn't need those fantasies anymore. They belonged to a version of me that believed closure came from others. Now I knew better. Closure is something you grant yourself. One afternoon, I passed by the glass tower again, the same one where my illusion shattered. It looked smaller than I remembered. Still tall, still polished, but powerless. I stood across the street and felt nothing. No anger, no grief, just distance. That was my proof. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without bleeding. Later that week, I signed papers for something new, a small venture. My idea, my risk. As my signature dried on the page, I felt a quiet pride rise in me. Not because success was guaranteed, but because ownership finally was. That night, alone in my apartment, I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the window. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who believed love required shrinking, the one who confused patience with loyalty, the one who thought endurance was a virtue even when it hurt. I wished I could reach back through time and say one thing to her. You are not difficult. You are not ungrateful. You are not too much. You were just asking the wrong person to love you, right? And sometimes that realization comes late. But late is still better than never. The end didn't arrive with applause. It arrived quietly. On an ordinary morning, with sunlight slipping through the curtains and the sound of the city waking up without me needing to keep pace. I made coffee, strong, exactly the way I liked it. That detail still mattered to me. I sat at the table and realized something simple, something profound. No one was waiting for me to fail. No one was watching to see if I'd obey. No one held the power to decide my worth. That freedom used to scare me. Now, it grounded me. I thought about how the world loves stories like mine for the wrong reasons. They focus on the billionaire, the betrayal, the drama. But that was never the story. The story was a woman who learned that love without respect is just another form of poverty. The story was a woman who walked away without knowing the ending, and trusted herself enough to write a better one. I didn't win because he lost. I won because I stopped measuring my life against his shadow. Some people will hear my story and ask, was it worth it? They mean the money, the comfort, the illusion of security. I would answer them honestly, yes, because peace is expensive and I finally paid the price. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this, I will never beg for honesty. I will never compete with lies. I will never shrink so someone else can feel tall. Love, when it comes again, will recognize me as an equal. And if it doesn't come, I will still be whole. Because the greatest ending isn't revenge, it's self-respect. And that's how my marriage ended. Not with divorce papers, but with a woman choosing herself and never looking back. After every ending, there is a strange quiet. No music, no applause, just space. I didn't expect that part. I thought freedom would feel loud, like fireworks, like doors slamming shut behind me. Instead, it felt like standing alone in a room after everyone has left. The story was over. The battle was done. And suddenly, there was no role left to play. For years, my identity had been shaped by resistance, by survival, by pushing back against something stronger than me. Now, there was nothing to push against. And that terrified me. I woke up one morning and asked myself a question I'd never dared to ask before. Who am I when I'm not escaping something? The question sat heavy in my chest. I went through my day on autopilot. Work, coffee, emails, smiles. But underneath it all, there was a quiet uncertainty. Not regret, not sadness. Unfamiliarity. Freedom removes the script. And without a script, you have to write your own lines. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. No anger staring back. No fear. Just a woman learning how to exist without armor. I realized something then. The end of suffering doesn't automatically create meaning. Meaning is something you have to build, slowly, intentionally, with no guarantee anyone will notice. And maybe that's the hardest part of all, because pain gives you direction, but peace asks you to choose one. Freedom has a cost no one warns you about. It demands responsibility without rescue. In my old life, when things went wrong, there was always someone to blame. A system, a marriage, a man with power. Now, there was only me. Every decision landed fully on my shoulders. Every mistake echoed louder. Bills arrived with no backup plan behind them. Work deadlines stacked without anyone cushioning the fall. Some nights, exhaustion hit harder than heartbreak ever did. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, asking myself, did I choose strength or just a harder life? That doubt was dangerous, because doubt doesn't scream. It whispers. It tells you comfort was safer, that dependence was easier, that maybe freedom was overrated. But then morning would come, and I'd get up anyway, not because I felt brave, but because I refused to betray myself again. I learned that independence isn't about feeling powerful every day. It's about showing up even when you feel small. Some days, I missed being taken care of, not by him, but by the illusion that someone else was responsible for my future. Letting go of that illusion felt like walking without a net. But slowly, something changed. I stopped waiting for relief. I became it. I learned how capable I actually was, not in dramatic moments, but in quiet endurance. And that's when I understood. Freedom doesn't replace struggle. It replaces permission. There's a moment after independence settles in when you realize you're exposed. No shield, no safety net, no one standing between you and disappointment. That's when life starts testing you differently. Not with betrayal, not with drama, but with honesty. I noticed it in small interactions. When someone disagreed with me and didn't back down. When feedback wasn't softened to protect my feelings. When I had to advocate for myself without borrowing anyone else's authority. It felt uncomfortable. Because for years, my survival strategy was silence. Silence keeps you safe. Silence keeps you agreeable. Silence keeps you chosen. Or so I thought. Now, silence felt like erasure. So I spoke. Not loudly, not aggressively, but clearly. And the world responded in a way I didn't aggressively, but clearly. And the world responded in a way I didn't expect. Some people respected it. Some people didn't. Both reactions taught me something important. Being visible will always cost you something. But being invisible costs you everything. There were days I went home emotionally drained. Not from work, not from effort, but from standing fully inside my own skin. No shrinking, no softening, no pretending, just presence. That presence felt risky. Because when you stop hiding, rejection becomes possible. But so does connection. Real connection. The kind that doesn't need performance. And slowly, carefully, I began to understand. Strength isn't built by being protected. It's built by being seen and surviving anyway. Failure arrived without drama. No warning, no villains, no one to blame, just numbers that didn't add up. A project I believed in collapsed quietly, not overnight, but slowly, piece by piece, until denial was no longer possible. I remember staring at the screen, realizing I had miscalculated, not because I was careless, but because I was new to risk, new to ownership, new to consequences that couldn't be softened by someone else's power. The old fear crept in immediately. This wouldn't have happened before. I didn't fail when I was protected. That thought scared me more than the failure itself, because it tried to convince me that safety was worth surrender. I went home that night carrying disappointment like a weight in my chest. No one yelled at me. No one punished me. And somehow, that made it harder. I had to face the truth alone. I sat on the floor and let myself feel it. Not shame, not humiliation, responsibility. This was my decision, my mistake, my lesson. And oddly enough, that realization didn't crush me. It steadied me. Failure without cruelty teaches you something powerful. You can fall without being destroyed. The next morning, I didn't quit. I adjusted. I learned. I tried again. Not because success was guaranteed, but because walking away would have meant abandoning the woman I fought so hard to become, and I was done doing that. There's a moment no one talks about. The moment after you stop being impressive, after the applause fades, after the sympathy disappears, after people stop asking how you're doing. That's when the real test begins. I noticed it slowly. Fewer messages, less curiosity, no one checking in to see if I was still okay. The world had moved on. And for the first time, I wasn't a headline. I wasn't a cautionary tale. I wasn't an inspiration. I was just a woman living her life. That emptiness unsettled me more than betrayal ever had. Because attention, even when it's painful, makes you feel real. Silence forces you to decide if you still matter without witnesses. There were nights I sat alone and wondered, if no one is watching, am I still choosing the right path? That question lingered, not because I wanted validation, but because I was learning to live without it. I began doing things that would never be praised, waking up early, trying again after mistakes, keeping promises no one knew I made. It felt anticlimactic, but also honest. I realized something important in that season. Growth isn't glamorous, healing isn't loud, and self-respect rarely comes with applause. It comes with consistency, with choosing integrity even when no one is counting. And one quiet evening, as I turned off the lights and prepared for sleep, I felt something new. Not excitement, not pride, peace, the kind that doesn't need witnesses. The past has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. Not loudly, not aggressively, casually, a name mentioned in a meeting, a look that lingers a second too long, a pause before someone decides what version of you they believe. I felt it the day a client recognized my last name. "Any relation to?" they asked carefully. I smiled. "Not anymore." The room shifted. I could feel the curiosity pressing in, waiting for explanation, for confession, for a story that justified my presence. The old me would have filled the silence, would have softened the truth, would have explained herself into exhaustion. This time, I didn't. I let the quiet do the work. Because I realized something then. You don't owe clarity to people who are only curious. Your life is not a public record. That decision, to stay silent without shrinking, felt powerful. But it wasn't easy. Later that day, doubt crept in. Should I have said more? Did I seem cold? Was I protecting myself? Or hiding? Those questions haunted me, until I understood the difference. Hiding is rooted in shame. Privacy is rooted in self-respect. I wasn't ashamed of my past. I just refused to let it define my future. That night, as I walked home, I felt something settle inside me. Closure doesn't mean erasing history. It means choosing which parts of it deserve your voice. And for the first time, my name belonged to me alone. Power arrived quietly, not with authority. not with titles shouted across rooms. It arrived the day people started listening without me asking. I noticed it in meetings, when my suggestions weren't interrupted, when decisions paused until I spoke, when silence waited for my opinion instead of moving past it. This was new. Before, power had always looked loud, commanding, demanding obedience. That was his version of it. I had lived under that shadow long enough to confuse control with strength, but what I was experiencing now was different. No intimidation, no fear, just influence. I didn't need to dominate the room. I didn't need to prove I was right. I asked questions. I listened. I chose my words carefully. And people followed, not because they had to, but because they trusted me. That trust felt heavier than power ever did, because trust asks you to be consistent, fair, human. I understood something important then. Power without cruelty is rare, because it requires restraint. It requires empathy. It requires knowing you could dominate, and choosing not to. That choice defined me more than any victory. I wasn't becoming him. I was becoming something better. And for the first time, authority didn't scare me because I wasn't using it to control. I was using it to build. It started with eye contact, not admiration, not pity. Recognition. Women began finding me after meetings, in hallways, by the elevator. They didn't ask for advice right away. They just stood close, like they needed confirmation that survival was possible. I saw myself in them. The hesitation before speaking, the careful wording, the way confidence flickered and retreated. One afternoon, a junior colleague sat across from me and said quietly, "I didn't know we were allowed to say no." That sentence stayed with me, because it revealed how many women are trained to disappear politely. I didn't become a mentor by announcing it. I became one by example, by leaving on time without apologizing, by disagreeing without softening my voice, by taking credit without guilt. They watched, and then they tried it themselves. Some succeeded, some failed, but all of them changed. I realized then that leadership isn't about being followed, it's about being mirrored. Your courage gives others permission, not instructions, permission. And that responsibility felt heavier than ambition ever had, because now my choices echoed beyond me. I wasn't just shaping my life, I was shaping possibility. And in that realization, I found a deeper purpose. Not to inspire, not to rescue, but to stand visibly whole, so others could imagine doing the same. It didn't start with attraction. That's what surprised me most. There was no spark, no sudden pull, no chaos dressed up as chemistry. It started with ease, a conversation that didn't drain me, a presence that didn't demand performance. We met through work, briefly, professionally, nothing memorable at first glance. But then we spoke again, and again. No probing questions, no curiosity sharpened into judgment, just listening. That felt unfamiliar. I noticed how my body responded. Not tense, not guarded, calm. That scared me, because in my past, intensity was mistaken for depth. Uncertainty felt like passion, and calm meant boredom. I had to unlearn that lie. This connection didn't rush me, didn't chase, didn't test my boundaries to see how much I'd give. He respected pauses, silence, distance. That restraint spoke louder than charm ever could. Still, I kept my guard up. Not out of fear of him, but fear of repetition. What if this is how it always begins? What if control just hasn't revealed itself yet? I watched closely. For manipulation, for entitlement, for the subtle signs I once ignored. They never came. Instead, there was consistency. And that unsettled me. Because when you're used to instability, peace feels suspicious. But slowly, carefully, I allowed one truth to surface. Not every door that opens leads back into a cage. Some open into choice. And this time, I wasn't stepping through out of need, but curiosity. Fear doesn't disappear just because you've healed. It evolves. I didn't fear abandonment anymore. I didn't fear betrayal the way I used to. I feared repetition. The quiet terror that history might wear. a different face, and still end the same way. Every time things felt easy, my instincts braced for impact. I listened too closely to words, analyzed pauses, measured tone like it might betray intention. Peace felt fragile. Because the last time I trusted calm, it turned out to be concealment. I hated that reflex. Not because it was irrational, but because it reminded me how deeply experience shapes us. One evening, sitting alone, I asked myself a difficult question. Am I protecting myself or punishing the future for the past? The answer wasn't clear. Boundaries can look like walls when fear is driving them. I realized then that healing doesn't mean becoming fearless. It means choosing courage with awareness, not blind trust, not reckless openness, but conscious choice. I didn't owe anyone access to me, but I also didn't want to imprison myself in caution. That balance between wisdom and openness was the hardest thing I'd faced so far. Harder than divorce, harder than rebuilding, because it required faith without illusion. That night, I made a quiet decision. I wouldn't rush, I wouldn't retreat, I would observe myself as much as I observed others, and if fear spoke, I would listen, but not obey, because my past taught me survival, but my future deserved something better. Change doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself in choices so small, they almost feel meaningless. I noticed it the day I caught myself reaching for an old pattern, over-explaining, apologizing before I'd done anything wrong. My mouth opened, then closed. I chose differently. That moment mattered more than any milestone, because patterns don't break with declarations. They break with interruption. I started paying attention to what felt familiar and asking whether familiar actually meant safe. Sometimes it didn't. I realized how often I'd mistaken emotional intensity for connection, how chaos once made me feel needed, chosen. Now, I chose calm, even when it felt unfamiliar, even when it didn't validate me instantly. That was harder than walking away from a marriage, because this time, the battle wasn't with someone else, it was with habit. I practiced pausing before responding, listening to my body before my fear, letting silence exist without filling it. The more I did this, the clearer something became. I wasn't afraid of love. I was afraid of losing myself inside it again. That awareness changed everything. I stopped asking, do they want me? And started asking, do I want this version of myself here? That question became my compass. And slowly, almost without noticing, I began choosing relationships that didn't demand sacrifice as proof. Not because I was guarded, but because I was finally aligned. Calm love feels almost invisible at first. No fireworks, no urgency, no fear of losing it if you blink. That used to confuse me. I had been trained to recognize love by adrenaline, by tension in my chest, by the constant need to prove my worth. This was different. There were days we didn't speak much, and nothing felt threatened by that silence. There were disagreements that didn't turn into battles, just conversations, resolutions without winners or losers. It felt stable, and stability scared me, because stability doesn't distract you from yourself. It leaves you alone with your thoughts, your needs, your responsibility to stay honest. I noticed how I didn't feel the urge to impress, didn't perform competence or softness on demand, didn't measure my value by how needed I was. That absence was unfamiliar. In the past, love felt like work. This felt like space. And in that space, I could hear my own voice clearly. I realized something quietly profound. Love isn't supposed to feel like survival. It's supposed to feel like permission. Permission to rest. Permission to disagree. Permission to remain whole. I didn't rush toward it. I didn't cling. I let it unfold at the pace my nervous system could trust. Because this time, I wasn't chasing reassurance. I was choosing resonance. And for the first time, love didn't ask me to disappear. It let me stay. Temptation doesn't always arrive looking dangerous. Sometimes it looks convenient. An offer came unexpectedly. A fast track. More money. More recognition. And quietly, a compromise. Nothing obvious. Nothing illegal. Just small requests to bend. To overlook. to tolerate what didn't align with me, to overlook, to tolerate what didn't align with me. The old version of me would have said yes immediately. Security used to be irresistible. Approval felt like safety. I felt that familiar pull return. The voice that whispered, "This would make things easier." But ease has a cost, and I had already paid too much in my past. I took a breath, listened to my body. There it was, that tightness in my chest. The same warning I ignored years ago. This wasn't opportunity, it was erosion. I declined, calmly, politely, without justification. The silence that followed was heavy. No applause, no reassurance, just the quiet consequence of choosing alignment over advancement. Later that night, doubt tried to reclaim ground. Did I overreact? Was I being difficult? Then I remembered how often I'd said yes to things that slowly erased me. That memory steadied me. Growth isn't always about adding more. Sometimes it's about refusing what costs too much. Saying no didn't make me powerful in anyone else's eyes, but it made me trustworthy to myself. And that trust, once broken, is priceless when restored. I heard about him the way you hear about old storms. After they've passed. After the damage is already done, someone mentioned his name in passing. No drama, no reverence, just information. The company had restructured. Partners had changed. The influence he once commanded now required negotiation. That detail stayed with me. Not because I cared about his downfall, but because it confirmed something I'd already learned. But it cracks the moment people stop complying. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing the news. No justice-fueled relief. No sense of victory. Just distance. He was still chasing outcomes, still reacting, still trying to manage narratives. And I had moved on to something quieter. I was building. Not an empire, not a reputation, a life that didn't need constant defense. That contrast mattered, because it reminded me that healing isn't about surpassing the past, it's about outgrowing it. I didn't need him to fail for me to succeed. I didn't need him to understand for me to be at peace. His story continued, loud, reactive, unfinished. Mine had shifted into something steadier, something self-authored. That night, I slept deeply. Not because I'd won, but because his shadow no longer reached me. Self-respect has a weight people don't warn you about. It makes life quieter, smaller, more selective, and sometimes lonely. I felt it in the invitations that stopped coming, in the conversations that ended faster once I set boundaries, in the way some people mistook my standards for distance. I wasn't offended. I understood. High self-respect makes you inconvenient. You don't bend easily. You don't overextend. You don't tolerate ambiguity where clarity is owed, and that means fewer people can stay close. There were nights I questioned myself. Am I isolating or simply refining? The line between the two can be thin. But then I remembered how crowded my life once was, full of noise, expectation, and quiet disrespect. That wasn't connection. That was accommodation. Now my circle was smaller, but it was honest. I could speak without editing, rest without guilt, exist without explanation. That kind of peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just stays. I realized then that loneliness isn't always a sign something is missing. Sometimes it's the echo left behind after you remove what never belonged. And in that space, that clean, quiet space, I learned to enjoy my own company. Not as a fallback, but as a foundation. Being seen used to feel like a performance, like standing under harsh lights, waiting to be judged. Now, it felt different. I noticed it one evening during a simple conversation. No agenda, no expectations. I wasn't trying to be impressive. I wasn't managing perceptions. I was just present. And instead of leaning forward to evaluate me, the person across from me leaned back, relaxed. That shift mattered, because for the first time, I wasn't being received as an idea, or a role, or a version shaped for acceptance. I was being met. No urgency to explain my past. No curiosity sharpened into entitlement. No pressure to perform resilience. No pressure to perform resilience. Just attention without demand. That kind of visibility is rare. It doesn't thrill the ego. It soothes the nervous system. I realized how often I'd confused being needed with being valued. Needed means replaceable once you stop providing. Valued means respected even in stillness. This was value, and it required nothing from me except honesty. I didn't have to prove my strength. I didn't have to narrate my growth. I could simply exist. That moment recalibrated something deep inside me. I no longer chased recognition. I recognized myself. And once that happened, being seen by others stopped feeling like risk and started feeling like confirmation. The life I built didn't look like the one I imagined years ago. It was quieter, slower, unimpressive to people who measured success by excess, and yet it fit me. My mornings were no longer rushed by anxiety. My evenings weren't spent recovering from emotional labor. I cooked because I wanted to, worked because the work mattered, rested without needing permission. That alone felt revolutionary. There was joy in ordinary things. Grocery shopping without checking prices out of fear. Laughing at something small and letting it last. Walking home with no urgency to escape my own thoughts. I realized how much of my old life was about anticipation. Waiting for approval. Waiting for change. Waiting for permission to feel okay. Now, nothing was pending. I wasn't waiting for life to start. I was living it. And that realization hit me one afternoon as I sat alone in the park, watching people pass by. No envy, no comparison, just presence. This wasn't the life I was promised. It was better. Because it was honest. Because it didn't require sacrifice as awareness. Because it didn't demand I trade myself for stability. I understood then that fulfillment isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It settles in gently, like certainty. And for the first time, I wasn't imagining a different future. I was standing inside the one I chose. Forgiveness arrived without ceremony. No conversation, no confrontation, no closure speech rehearsed in my head. It arrived one ordinary afternoon while I was doing something completely unrelated, watering a plant by the window. The thought of him surfaced suddenly, not sharp, not heavy, just present. And for the first time, it didn't hurt. That surprised me, because I used to believe forgiveness was an action, something you did for someone else. But this wasn't that. This was release. I didn't excuse what happened. I didn't rewrite the past into something softer. I simply stopped carrying it. I realized I no longer needed him to understand, or regret, or apologize in the right way. Those needs had quietly expired. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't reconciliation. It doesn't reopen doors. It doesn't invite people back in. It closes the emotional file. And that closure wasn't dramatic. It was gentle, like setting down a bag you forgot you were holding. I understood then why forgiveness can't be forced. It comes only when the lesson has fully integrated, when you no longer need pain to remember what you deserve. I looked at my reflection in the window. Calm, steady, no resentment hiding behind strength, just clarity. Forgiveness didn't reconnect me to him. It disconnected me from the version of myself that was still waiting. And in that moment, I felt lighter than I had in years. Identity isn't something you find. It's something you stop abandoning. That truth came to me slowly, in fragments over time. I noticed it in how I introduced myself, not as someone's ex, not as a survivor, not as a lesson wrapped in a warning, just my name, no backstory required. I realize how often I used to define myself by contrast, who I wasn't anymore, what I escaped, what I endured. That language kept me tied to the past, so I changed it. I stopped narrating my pain as proof of strength, stopped explaining my choices as defenses. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was choosing. I asked myself a simple question one evening. Who am I when no one needs an explanation? The answer surprised me. I am someone who values clarity over chaos, someone who chooses consistency over intensity, someone who listens to discomfort instead of negotiating with it. I am not fearless, but I am self-aware. I don't chase validation. I don't romanticize struggle. I don't confuse endurance with loyalty. That understanding didn't arrive with certainty. It arrived with peace, the kind that doesn't need reinforcement. For the first time, my identity didn't feel like something I had to protect. It felt stable, like ground. And standing there, fully rooted in myself, I understood. I wasn't rebuilding who I used to be. I was finally meeting who I had always been, without interruption. There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize your life no longer revolves around healing. You're not fixing, not recovering, not proving anything to anyone. You're simply living. That moment came to me without ceremony. I was standing at the window one evening, watching the city settle into itself. Lights turning on, people going home, life continuing, without asking my permission. And for the first time, I wasn't measuring myself against any version of my past. Not the wife, not the survivor, not the woman who had to be strong because she had no choice. I was just myself, whole. I understood then that ascension isn't about rising above others. It's about rising above the need to be defined by what hurt you. I didn't need a new title, a new relationship, a new story to tell. My presence was enough. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that freedom isn't something you win once. It's something you practice daily. By telling the truth, by choosing alignment, by walking away from anything that asks you to disappear. My life didn't become perfect. It became honest. And honesty gave me peace. If someone were to ask me now what I gained from losing everything I once believed in, I would tell them this: I gained authorship. No one writes my worth for me anymore. No one edits my voice. No one decides how much space I'm allowed to take. I stand where I am, not because I escaped something terrible, but because I chose something true. And that choice, repeated every day, is the quiet power that no one can take from me. This is not the end of my story. It's the point where the story finally belongs to me. I thought mastery would feel like arrival, like a final breath after a long climb, like standing on solid ground and knowing there was nowhere else I needed to go. But when life finally quieted, when nothing was chasing me and nothing was breaking, I felt something unexpected. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that asks questions. I had built a life that worked, a rhythm that didn't drain me, a sense of self that didn't collapse under pressure. By every measure I once cared about, I was done. And yet, something inside me whispered, "There's more." That unsettled me, because for so long, growth was reactive. I healed because I was hurt. I changed because I had to survive. Pain gave me direction. Now pain was gone, and without it, I had to face a new reality. Who do you become when struggle is no longer your teacher? I noticed how my days unfolded without urgency. Mornings weren't rushed by anxiety. Evenings weren't heavy with recovery. I wasn't fighting anything anymore, and part of me didn't know what to do with that. I caught myself creating unnecessary pressure, overthinking small decisions, looking for problems that didn't exist. Because stillness can feel like emptiness when you've been conditioned to equate movement with worth. I had to relearn something fundamental. Peace is not stagnation. It's capacity. Capacity to choose rather than react. Capacity to listen rather than defend. Capacity to notice what actually matters when nothing is on fire. That realization didn't come easily. There were days I questioned whether I was becoming complacent, whether ambition had softened into comfort, whether I was wasting potential by refusing to push harder. Then I understood the deeper fear beneath those thoughts. I was afraid that without pain, I would lose my edge. But pain was never my edge. Clarity was. And clarity doesn't disappear when life gets quiet. It gets sharper. I began paying attention to what called to me now, not out of fear, not out of lack, but out of alignment. Not louder goals, not bigger outcomes, meaningful ones. I realized mastery isn't about arriving at a destination. It's about reaching a point where your nervous system no longer confuses chaos with importance, where you stop mistaking exhaustion for purpose, where you can sit with your life as it is and not feel the need to escape it. That's a different kind of strength, one that doesn't announce itself, one that doesn't demand validation, One that asks a new question entirely. Now that you're no longer healing, what will you create? I didn't have the answer yet, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the question. Because I had learned something essential. Silence after mastery isn't emptiness. It's an opening. There was a time when pain woke me up every morning. It gave my days direction. My choices, urgency. My choices, urgency. My life momentum. I didn't have to ask why I was moving forward. I was escaping something. But now, nothing was chasing me. And that changed everything. I realized how deeply I'd relied on pain as fuel, how suffering had once given me clarity. When life hurts, the next step is obvious. Survive, fix, leave, rebuild. But when life stops hurting, the questions become harder. What do you want when you don't need anything anymore? That question haunted me quietly. I noticed how my motivation had shifted. I no longer pushed myself to prove worth. I no longer chased outcomes to feel safe. And for a moment, that scared me. Because without pain, progress feels optional. I worried I was becoming passive. That comfort was dulling my ambition. That I was losing the hunger that once defined me. But then I looked closer. What I had lost wasn't hunger. It was desperation. And desperation is not purpose. Purpose doesn't rush. It doesn't scream. It doesn't punish you if you pause. Purpose waits until you're ready to hear it. I began paying attention to what energized me now. Not what impressed others, not what distracted me from old wounds. I noticed how certain conversations lingered with me, how some ideas stayed long after the moment passed, how meaning showed up quietly, without urgency. That was new. Before, motivation felt like pressure in my chest. Now, it felt like a pull, subtle, steady. I realized something important. Pain creates motion. Purpose creates direction. And I was finally in a place where direction mattered more than speed. I started saying no to things that were impressive but empty. I stopped overcommitting to prove reliability. I allowed myself to be selective without justification. That selectivity felt radical, because for so long, value was tied to output, to endurance, to how much I could carry without breaking. Now, value was tied to intention. Why this? Why now? Why me? Those questions shaped my days, not aggressively, not anxiously, thoughtfully. I noticed how my body responded when I followed purpose instead of pressure. No tightness, no fatigue that sleep couldn't fix, just alignment. And alignment does something powerful. It quiets the noise of comparison. It dissolves the noise of comparison. It dissolves the urge to compete. It makes other people's paths feel irrelevant. I wasn't trying to be more anymore. I was trying to be true. That shift changed how I measured progress. Not by milestones, not by applause, but by internal coherence. Did my actions match my values? Did my pace respect my limits? Did my choices feel honest? Some days, purpose looked like rest. Other days, it looked like commitment. But it never looked like self-betrayal. And that's when I understood. When pain no longer drives you, you don't stop moving forward. You just stop running. You walk. You notice. You choose. And for the first time, my life wasn't propelled by what I escaped, but guided by what I wanted to build. There's a strange moment that arrives when you stop being useful. Not irrelevant. Not invisible. Not invisible. Just no longer needed in the way you once were. I felt it slowly. People stopped coming to me with emergencies, stopped leaning on my strength to carry what they didn't want to face, stopped assuming I would fix, absorb, or sacrifice. At first, I mistook that shift for loss, because for a long time, usefulness was how I earned my place. If I could help, I belonged. If I could endure, I mattered. I didn't realize how transactional that version of love had been. Being needed gave me certainty. It gave me structure. It gave me an identity. And when that role faded, I had to face an uncomfortable truth. I didn't know who I was without it. There were moments I almost stepped back into old patterns, offering help no one asked for, overextending just to feel relevant again. That urge scared me, because it revealed how deeply I'd been conditioned to equate worth with usefulness. So I resisted it. I sat with the discomfort instead. I let people solve their own problems. Let silence exist where I once filled space. Let myself be present without performing value. That was harder than any confrontation I'd ever survived. Because when you stop being useful, you're left with one question: am I still wanted? That question has nothing to do with productivity. It cuts straight to identity. I watched carefully how people responded to this new version of me. Some drifted away quietly. They didn't know how to relate without extraction. Others stayed, but differently. They didn't come for answers. They came for conversation. They didn't need me to be strong. They respected me for being honest. That distinction mattered. I realized then that usefulness attracts dependency. Presence attracts connection. And connection, real connection, doesn't require you to be exhausted to be earned. That realization rewired something deep inside me. I stopped measuring my days by output. Stopped asking whether I'd done enough to deserve rest. Stopped justifying my existence through contribution. I began to experience something new, belonging without obligation. It felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. Because when you've lived as a resource for too long, being valued for who you are, not what you provide, can feel undeserved. I had to relearn how to receive without guilt. I had to relearn how to receive without guilt. How to say thank you instead of it's nothing. How to be appreciated without deflecting. That practice was humbling, because it forced me to confront an old belief that my value was conditional. It wasn't. It never was. I just hadn't been taught to recognize unconditional regard. Letting go of usefulness didn't make me smaller. It made me free. Free to choose where my energy went. Free to show up without depletion. Free to exist without constantly proving I earned my place. And in that freedom, I discovered something profound. I wasn't losing relevance. I was shedding a role that kept me replaceable. Because people can replace what you do. But they can't replace who you are, once you finally stop substituting one for the other. I didn't set out to teach anyone anything. That mattered to me, because I knew how easily guidance can turn into control, how advice can become another way of shaping someone into what you think they should be. I had lived that, so I stayed quiet, not withdrawn, just intentional. I showed up fully as myself and let that be enough. And something unexpected happened. People began to learn anyway. Not from what I said, but from what I refused to do. They noticed when I didn't rush to fix situations that weren't mine, when I paused instead of reacting, when I admitted uncertainty without apologizing for it. That restraint spoke louder than instruction ever could. I saw it in small moments. A colleague choosing to speak up after watching me hold my ground calmly. A friend setting a boundary because she'd seen me honor my own. A younger woman deciding not to justify her choices because she realized she didn't have to. No speeches, no lessons, just presence. I realized then that the most powerful teaching doesn't come from authority. It comes from embodiment. People don't follow words, they follow patterns. And patterns are contagious. I had spent years trying to be understood, trying to explain myself into safety, trying to articulate my worth clearly enough that no one could misuse it. Now, I understood something different. Clarity doesn't need translation. It radiates. When you stop negotiating with your own boundaries, others feel it. When you stop shrinking to make people comfortable, they notice. Some feel inspired. Others feel exposed. Both reactions are information. I didn't rush to soothe discomfort anymore. Not mine, not theirs. Because discomfort isn't harm. Sometimes it's growth asking for space. I learned to trust silence as a teacher. To let moments land without commentary. To resist the urge to package my experience into digestible advice. Not everyone needs a guide. Some people just need proof that another way exists, and I could offer that without a single directive. There was humility in that realization. I wasn't responsible for anyone's transformation. I didn't need to carry anyone else's awakening. My only obligation was alignment. To live in a way that didn't contradict my values. To choose consistency over charisma. to let my life speak where my words once over-explained. That approach changed my relationships. People stopped asking me what they should do. They started asking themselves. That shift felt like respect, not admiration, not dependence, respect. And respect has weight. It doesn't inflate you, it grounds you. I began to see how easily leadership becomes ego when it's fueled by recognition. I wanted none of that. I wanted impact without attachment, influence without ownership. So I kept my posture simple. I listened more than I spoke. I shared only when invited. I trusted others to interpret what they needed from what they observed. That trust returned something to me: peace. Because when you stop trying to shape outcomes, you regain energy. You stop performing wisdom and start living it. And that's when I understood. Teaching without preaching is an act of respect. It assumes others are capable, that they will arrive at their own conclusions, that your role is not to lead them, but to walk your path clearly enough that they can recognize theirs. That kind of influence doesn't announce itself. It lingers. And I was finally comfortable letting it do just that. There was a season when I wanted to disappear. Not dramatically, not tragically, quietly. I imagined a life so small it barely registered. No expectations, no visibility, no one watching closely enough to misunderstand me. After years of being seen, judged, discussed, projected, onto, anonymity felt like rest. I didn't want recognition. I didn't want influence. I didn't want to matter in ways that came with responsibility. I just wanted to exist without weight. That desire surprised me. Because it didn't come from fear. It came from fatigue. Being conscious all the time is tiring. Being intentional. Being aligned. Being careful with your words because they land. There are days when you miss being unseen. When you miss making choices that ripple only inside your own life. I noticed the temptation in small thoughts. What if I moved somewhere no one knew me? What if I stopped offering insight and just blended in? What if I let the world move without me noticing it so closely? Those thoughts weren't about escape. They were about relief. And I had to be honest with myself about that, because disappearing can look like peace when what you're really craving is rest. I slowed down. I took fewer meetings. I guarded my evenings. I stopped engaging where my presence wasn't necessary. And still, the pull to vanish lingered. That's when I understood the deeper conflict. I wasn't afraid of being seen. I was afraid of being responsible for what being seen creates. Visibility invites expectation. Expectation invites interpretation. And interpretation often misses nuance. I didn't want to be misunderstood again. I didn't want my stillness mistaken for superiority, my boundaries mistaken for distance, my silence mistaken for judgment. Disappearing felt safer than correcting narratives I never volunteered to create. But safety has a cost. It shrinks your life in ways that aren't always visible. I asked myself a difficult question one evening. Am I choosing privacy or avoiding impact? The answer was uncomfortable. A part of me wanted to disappear because presence carries consequence. When you are truly yourself, you change rooms just by entering them. And that kind of influence, even when gentle, demands responsibility. I didn't want to abuse that, but I also didn't want to run from it. So I found a middle ground. I didn't retreat from life. I retreated from performance. I stopped explaining my choices to people who weren't invested in understanding, stopped offering insight where curiosity was shallow, stopped showing up where my presence was being consumed instead of respected. That wasn't disappearing. That was discernment. I learned that you don't have to make yourself small to protect your peace. You just have to be selective. And in that selectivity, something shifted. The desire to vanish softened. Because I realized I wasn't trying to escape my life. I was trying to protect its integrity. There's a difference. Disappearing erases you. Discernment preserves you. And once I understood that, I no longer wanted to disappear. I wanted to remain, but on my terms, quietly present, carefully visible, fully myself, not everywhere, but where it mattered. I didn't realize my voice had weight until people started waiting for it. Not interrupting, not rushing ahead, waiting. That pause changed everything. Because once your words begin to matter, silence becomes a decision. I noticed it in meetings, in conversations, in quiet moments where someone would glance at me, expecting clarity, not advice, not rescue, perspective. That expectation felt heavier than authority ever did. Power, I learned, isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with permission slips or titles. It arrives the moment your presence alters outcomes, and that's when responsibility begins. I became more careful, not cautious, but deliberate. I stopped speaking just to fill space, stopped sharing thoughts that weren't fully formed, stopped reacting quickly when reflection was more honest. That restraint wasn't about fear. It was about respect. Because words linger long after tone fades. I had seen how careless language can wound, how confident statements can corner others, how influence, when unexamined, becomes manipulation. I refused to be that kind of voice, so I asked myself harder questions. Why am I speaking right now? Who does this serve? Is this clarity or ego dressed as certainty? Sometimes the answer meant staying quiet, and that wasn't easy. Silence can feel like withholding when you're used to being helpful, but I learned that not every moment needs commentary. Sometimes presence is enough. Sometimes listening does more than leading. I watched how my words landed when I chose them carefully. They didn't dominate conversations. They didn't close doors. They opened space. People felt safer disagreeing, more confident refining their own ideas, less dependent on my approval. That mattered to me. Because real influence doesn't create followers, it creates thinkers. I understood then why leadership exhausts people who crave control. Control demands constant correction. Influence demands integrity. One is performative. The other is internal. And integrity requires something most people avoid. Accountability, not just for what you say, but for what you don't. For the assumptions you challenge. For the narratives you refuse to amplify. For the moments you step back so others can step forward. I felt the burden of that responsibility most acutely when someone thanked me for something I didn't intentionally do. "You changed how I see this," they said. Those words stayed with me because they reminded me that impact isn't always planned. And when impact is unintentional, responsibility becomes even more important. You don't get to claim innocence when your influence shapes outcomes. So I slowed down further. I chose precision over volume, depth over speed. I accepted that being thoughtful would sometimes be mistaken for distance. That was a price I was willing to pay. Because I'd learned something crucial. A voice that matters must be guided by humility, not self-doubt, not silence. Humility, the awareness that you don't own the truth, you participate in it. That understanding changed how I saw power. Power wasn't something to wield. It was something to steward, to protect from misuse, to guard from ego, to handle with care, to handle with care. And in accepting that responsibility, something unexpected happened. I felt lighter, because I was no longer trying to be impressive. I was trying to be accurate, and accuracy, when paired with compassion, is one of the most respectful forms of strength there is. That's when I knew my voice didn't matter because it was loud. It mattered because it was careful. And care, when practiced consistently, becomes trust. Because from the inside, success doesn't feel like acceleration. It feels like steadiness. I noticed it one morning when nothing remarkable happened. No breakthrough, no crisis, no surge of validation. Just a normal day that unfolded without resistance. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to optimize it. I wasn't trying to squeeze productivity out of every hour. I wasn't scanning for opportunities to justify my time. I was simply present. That presence felt like an achievement. I realized how much of my old ambition was fueled by anxiety. The fear of falling behind. The fear of being forgotten. The fear that if I stopped moving, I'd disappear. That fear had once kept me sharp, but it had also kept me tense. Now, ambition looked different. It wasn't about more, it was about enough. enough work that challenged me without consuming me, enough connection that nourished me without draining me, enough silence that I could hear myself think. That balance didn't impress anyone from the outside, but from the inside, it felt like mastery. I began measuring success by different questions. Did my life feel coherent? Did my values show up in my calendar? Did I have space to respond rather than react? Some days, success meant walking away from something promising because it wasn't aligned. Other days, it meant staying with something difficult because it was meaningful. Neither choice came with applause, but both came with peace. I thought about the version of success I once chased, the titles, the recognition, the visible markers that told the world I was doing well. I didn't resent that version of myself. She did the best she could with what she knew, but she believed success lived in outcomes. I had learned it lived in sustainability. Can you keep this life without burning out? Can you maintain this pace without losing yourself? Can you grow without betraying what matters to you? Those questions became my benchmarks. I noticed how my nervous system responded to this new definition. Less tension, more clarity, a deeper sense of agency. I wasn't driven by urgency anymore. I was guided by discernment, and discernment is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't rush decisions. It waits for alignment. I realized then that success, from the inside, feels almost ordinary. Not because it lacks meaning, but because it no longer relies on spectacle. It's waking up without dread, making choices without fear, ending the day without regret. It's knowing that if everything stayed exactly as it is for a while, you'd still be okay. That realization softened something in me. I didn't need to prove my worth through expansion. I didn't need to chase growth for its own sake. I could let my life deepen instead. And depth, I learned, is harder to measure, but far more satisfying to inhabit. Success stopped being a destination. It became a condition, a state of internal agreement, where who I am, what I do, and how I live no longer pull in different directions. That's what success looks like from the inside, not dazzling, but solid. And once you experience that kind of solidity, nothing superficial can convince you to trade it away. There was a woman I never had, not a mentor, not a guide, not a voice that sat beside me and said, "This is normal. You're not broken." I used to feel that absence, like a hollow space. Growing up, I learned through observation, watching what not to become, absorbing lessons through silence and consequence. No one taught me how to choose myself without guilt. No one showed me how to trust calm. No one modeled a life where strength didn't come from endurance. So, I improvised. And for a long time, improvisation looked like survival. But something shifted as my life steadied. I noticed how I spoke to myself in moments of uncertainty. Not harshly, not dismissively, patiently. I didn't rush my own confusion anymore. I didn't shame myself for hesitation. I didn't demand certainty before allowing rest. That gentleness surprised me, because it sounded like guidance. I realized then that I had become the woman I once searched for. Not intentionally, not dramatically, quietly. In the way I paused before making decisions, in the way I forgave my own missteps without erasing accountability, in the way I protected my energy without calling it selfish. I began to notice how younger versions of myself surfaced in unexpected moments, when I hesitated before speaking up, when I doubted my instincts, when I questioned whether my needs were reasonable. Instead of overriding those moments, I listened. I asked myself what I needed then, not what would make me look composed or competent. Often, the answer was simple: reassurance, time, permission to move slowly, things I was never given. So I gave them to myself. That practice changed everything. I stopped pushing myself into decisions I wasn't ready for, stopped interpreting uncertainty as weakness, stopped mistaking pressure for progress. I treated my inner world with the same care I offered others, and in doing so, I healed something generational. Because the absence of guidance doesn't disappear when you grow up, it gets internalized. You either become your own critic or your own advocate. I chose the latter. Not because it was easy, but because I had lived the cost of the former. I understood then why self-parenting is such a quiet form of strength. No one sees it. No one applauds it. But it shows up everywhere. In boundaries that hold. In choices that honor long-term well-being over short-term relief. In the ability to comfort yourself without collapsing into isolation. I didn't need to recreate the past to heal it. I needed to respond differently to the present. And slowly, that changed how I related to my history. I no longer resented the lack. I honored what I built in its place. Resilience without bitterness. Wisdom without hardness. Clarity without cruelty. I wasn't trying to rewrite who I was. I was allowing myself to become whole. The woman I never had didn't arrive from the outside. She emerged from consistency, from showing up for myself when no one else could, from choosing compassion without losing standards, from learning how to be firm and kind at the same time. That woman lives in me now, not as a voice that commands, but as one that steadies. And knowing she's there, I no longer feel the absence that once defined me, because what I needed then is exactly who I am now. There was a day when life stopped interrogating me. No questions, no tests, no quiet pressure to justify who I had become. That day didn't arrive with certainty or celebration. It arrived with ease. I noticed it when I made a decision and didn't immediately second-guess it. When I chose rest without negotiating its worth. When I allowed a moment to pass without extracting meaning from it. For most of my life, I had lived in evaluation mode, constantly asking, is this right? Am I doing enough? Am I becoming the person I should be? Those questions once felt necessary. They pushed me forward, kept me alert, helped me survive, but they also kept me restless, always measuring, always adjusting, always scanning for signs that I was falling behind some invisible standard. Now, those questions had gone quiet, not because I stopped caring, but because I had learned to trust myself. Trust replaced interrogation, and that trust felt like relief. I realized how much energy I'd spent trying to figure myself out, as if I were a problem to solve, rather than a life to live. I used to believe that self-awareness meant constant self-examination, but there's a point where awareness becomes presence, where you no longer analyze every feeling, you simply experience it. That's where I found myself, living without commentary. I didn't narrate my emotions anymore, didn't label every reaction as progress or regression, didn't ask whether I was healed enough to deserve calm. I just lived. And living, without constant interpretation, felt radical. I noticed how my body responded. Less tension in my shoulders. Breath that reached deeper. A steadiness I didn't have to maintain consciously. My nervous system had finally learned safety. Not from circumstances, but from consistency. I showed up for myself enough times that my body stopped bracing. That change was subtle, but profound. I stopped treating every choice as a referendum on my identity. Stopped seeing mistakes as evidence of failure. Stopped fearing that one wrong step would undo years of growth. Life became less about managing myself and more about engaging with the world. I listened more. Observed more, reacted less. There was room for curiosity again. Not the anxious kind that demands answers, but the open kind that allows discovery. I understood then that growth doesn't always feel like effort. Sometimes it feels like release, like putting down a weight you forgot you were carrying. And in that release, something beautiful happened. I stopped asking life what it wanted from me. I started asking what I wanted to give, not out of obligation, but out of capacity. That shift changed my relationship with time. I no longer rushed toward the future or replayed the past for lessons. I trusted that whatever mattered would meet me where I was. That trust didn't make me passive. It made me present. And presence, I learned, is where meaning lives. Not in answers, not in conclusions, but in attention. I wasn't waiting for clarity anymore. I was living inside it. And when life no longer feels like a series of questions you must answer correctly, you discover something quietly profound. You are no longer auditioning for your own existence. You belong here, without justification. That realization didn't end my curiosity about life, it refined it. I wasn't searching for who I should become. I was allowing who I am to meet the world honestly. And in that honesty, life finally stopped asking questions, because I had learned how to listen. Legacy doesn't announce itself. Legacy doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with applause or headlines or a moment where the world agrees you mattered. It settles, quietly, gradually, in ways you don't always get to witness. I used to think legacy was something you left behind, something other people named for you after you were gone. Now I understand it differently. Legacy is what remains while you're still here, in the way rooms feel after you leave them, in the standards you normalize without demanding compliance, in the courage you make possible simply by existing honestly. I noticed it in the smallest moments. A conversation that shifted tone after I spoke. A silence that felt safer because I didn't rush to fill it. A boundary that held without explanation. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that could be traced back to me with certainty. And that was the point. The most durable influence doesn't need attribution. It doesn't ask to be remembered. It becomes part of the environment. I thought about the woman I was at the beginning of this story. How hard she worked to be chosen. How carefully she shaped herself to fit expectations she didn't create. How she believed endurance was the price of love. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be safe. She wanted to matter. I wish I could tell her what I know now. That mattering isn't something you earn by suffering well. That safety doesn't come from proximity to power. That being seen means nothing if you're not seen accurately. But legacy isn't built by speaking to the past. It's built by how you move forward. I stopped trying to leave a mark. I focused on leaving things better than I found them. Conversations clearer, spaces calmer, choices more honest. I learned that impact doesn't require intensity. It requires consistency. Showing up the same way even when it's inconvenient. Holding values steady even when no one is watching. Choosing alignment when compromise would be easier. Those choices compound, not into fame, not into recognition, into trust. And trust changes systems quietly. People begin to expect clarity instead of chaos, respect instead of compliance, honesty instead of performance, honesty instead of compliance. That expectation becomes a standard. And standards outlive stories. I no longer needed my life to be understood by everyone. I needed it to be coherent. I needed my actions to agree with my values, even when it cost me something. I needed my boundaries to be firm without becoming walls. I needed my voice to be steady without becoming dominant. That balance became my contribution. Not a message, not a movement, a way of being. I realized then that some people leave monuments, others leave permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to say no without explanation. Permission to choose calm over chaos and still call it ambition. That kind of legacy doesn't get archived. It gets passed on, quietly, imperfectly, human to human. And that's enough. I don't know who will remember my name. I don't know which moments mattered most to people I'll never meet. But I know this. I live in a way that doesn't require erasure. I choose a life that doesn't ask me to disappear. I move through the world without borrowing power from fear. That is the legacy. Not perfection. Not permanence. Presence. A woman who learned to stand without hardness, to lead without control, to live without apology. Not everyone leaves a story. Some leave a standard. And if anything remains after all the chapters close, I hope it's this, the quiet certainty that a woman can choose herself, fully, calmly, without spectacle, and in doing so, change what feels possible for those who come after. That is how this story ends, not with an ending, but with continuity. There came a day when I stopped telling my story, not because it didn't matter, not because it wasn't true, but because I no longer needed it to explain myself. For a long time, my life had been framed like a narrative, a beginning marked by love, a middle shaped by loss, an ending defined by growth. Stories are useful when you're trying to make sense of pain. They give structure to chaos. They turn confusion into meaning. But once meaning settles, the story becomes optional. I noticed it when someone asked about my past, and I didn't feel the urge to summarize it neatly. No highlights, no warnings, no lessons wrapped in careful language. I just answered the question that was actually being asked, and let the rest remain unsaid. That restraint felt new, liberating. I realized how often I used to narrate myself into safety. If people understood where I came from, they might be gentler, more patient, less demanding. But I wasn't asking for gentleness anymore. I was asking for accuracy. And accuracy doesn't require a backstory. It requires presence. I stopped offering context before opinions, stopped justifying boundaries with history, stopped explaining why certain things mattered to me, not out of secrecy, out of trust. Trust that I didn't need to be understood in order to be valid. That was a profound shift. Because once you stop presenting your life as a story to be interpreted, you stop living like a character. You become a person. A person doesn't need an arc. A person doesn't need resolution. A person just needs room. I noticed how this changed my interactions. Conversations became simpler, lighter. I wasn't performing coherence. I wasn't trying to be compelling. I was just there. And that was enough. There's a quiet confidence that comes from no longer positioning your life as evidence. Evidence of strength. Evidence of wisdom. Evidence that you survived something worth acknowledging. I didn't need proof anymore. I had lived it. The absence of narrative didn't make my life smaller. It made it wider. I could respond to moments as they were, not as chapters that needed to fit a theme. Joy didn't have to symbolize healing. Rest didn't have to represent growth. They could simply exist. I understood then why some people speak less as they age, not because they have nothing to say, but because they no longer need to translate themselves constantly. There's peace in that. A life without a story to prove is a life that doesn't need witnesses. It's lived from the inside, and from there, everything feels more honest. I didn't abandon my past. I just stopped carrying it into every room. I didn't erase my experiences. I integrated them. So now, when I wake up, my life doesn't ask me who I am based on where I've been. It meets me where I stand. And where I stand is simple. I'm not becoming anything in particular. I'm not resolving anything unfinished. I'm living, without narration, without performance, without a story to prove. And in that quiet, unremarkable truth, I feel more real than I ever have. The days that mattered most didn't announce themselves. They didn't arrive with clarity or insight or a sense that something important was happening. They looked ordinary. Morning light through the same window, the same cup in my hands, the same route walked at an unremarkable pace. For a long time, I believed meaning had to be dramatic to be real. That transformation required tension. That significance came from moments you could point to and say, that was it. But those moments are rare. What sustains a life is repetition. I began to notice how safety lived in routine, not the numbing kind, but the anchoring kind. Waking up without dread, preparing meals without rushing, ending the day without replaying conversations in my head. These weren't milestones, they were foundations. There was a time when I feared boredom. I mistook it for emptiness, for stagnation. Now I understand boredom differently. Boredom is what remains when anxiety leaves. It's the space where your nervous system finally exhales. In that space, something subtle grows. Contentment. Not the loud, celebratory kind, but the steady kind that doesn't ask for attention. I noticed how my body responded to predictability. My shoulders softened. My breath deepened. My thoughts slowed. Ordinary days became proof that nothing was wrong. I didn't need excitement to feel alive anymore. I needed consistency. I started honoring the small rituals I once overlooked. The quiet satisfaction of finishing a task, the comfort of returning to familiar places, the ease of conversations that didn't require performance. These moments didn't demand interpretation. They didn't symbolize anything. They were enough on their own. I realized how much of my old life was spent waiting for things to change, for circumstances to improve, for people to become different, for myself to finally arrive somewhere better. Now, I wasn't waiting. I was inhabiting, and inhabiting life, fully, attentively changed how time felt. Days no longer rushed past me. They unfolded. Not every day was joyful. Not every moment was meaningful. But none of it felt wasted. There is a quiet dignity in ordinary days. They don't ask you to be exceptional. They ask you to be present, to show up, to care for what's in front of you, to tend to a life rather than chase a narrative. I stopped romanticizing upheaval, stopped equating peace with complacency. Stability wasn't a lack of ambition. It was the result of alignment. I understood then why people protect their routines so fiercely. Not because they're boring, but because they're sacred. Routine holds what inspiration can't sustain. It creates a rhythm where your life can breathe. And in that rhythm, I found something I didn't know I was missing. Trust. Trust that tomorrow would be manageable. Trust that I didn't need to brace myself. Trust that ordinary days could carry a life. They didn't glitter. They didn't impress. But they held me. And being held by something as simple as consistency turned out to be one of the most meaningful experiences of all. There was a time when being understood felt essential. If people knew my reasons, my history, the shape of my pain, then maybe they would treat me more carefully. I used to explain myself as a form of protection. If I clarified enough, softened enough, gave context generously, misunderstanding might be avoided. But misunderstanding is inevitable. And one day, I stopped trying to outrun it. I noticed the shift when someone assumed something about me and I didn't correct them. Not because they were right, but because correcting them wasn't necessary. That moment felt radical. For years, I had believed that clarity was my responsibility, that if someone misread me, I had failed to communicate. Now I understood something different. Not all misunderstanding is a problem to solve. Some of it is simply where other people stop listening. I stopped explaining choices that felt settled, stopped defending boundaries that were already firm, stopped offering emotional footnotes to decisions I had made in peace. And nothing collapsed. The world didn't punish me for my silence. Relationships didn't disintegrate overnight. What changed was internal. I felt lighter, because needing to be understood is a form of dependence. It ties your sense of safety to someone else's perception, and perception is unstable. It shifts with mood, with bias, with proximity. I had spent too much of my life handing strangers the power to decide whether my existence made sense. I didn't want that anymore, so I let people misunderstand me. Not out of indifference, out of trust. Trust that my life didn't require consensus. Trust that truth didn't need constant reinforcement. There was peace in that restraint. I realized how often explanation had been a habit, not a necessity. A reflex formed in years when being misread meant being harmed, but I wasn't there anymore. I was safe enough to be misinterpreted. That safety changed how I moved through the world. I listened without preparing rebuttals. I spoke without anticipating objections. I left conversations without replaying them in my head. The need to be understood had been noisy. Its absence was quiet. I didn't stop caring what people thought. I stopped organizing my life around it. There's a difference. I still valued connection, still welcomed curiosity. But I no longer chased agreement, because agreement can be coerced through explanation. Understanding cannot. Understanding only happens when someone is ready to receive it. And readiness isn't something you can force, so I stopped trying. I allowed my actions to stand on their own, allowed silence to do its work, allowed people to believe whatever made sense to them. Some assumptions were wrong, some were unfair, and none of them defined me. That realization felt like freedom, not the loud kind, the grounded kind, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. When you no longer need to be understood, you stop performing coherence. You stop narrating your life as a defense. You start living more honestly, because you're not anticipating interpretation. I became more precise with my energy. I shared myself with people who asked to know me, not with those who only wanted to label me. That discernment didn't make me closed. It made me peaceful. Because when you release the need to be understood, you gain something far more stable, self-trust. And self-trust doesn't require translation. It holds, even in silence, even in misinterpretation, even when no one else sees you clearly. Because you do, and that's enough. There was a time when I moved through life armored, not visibly, not intentionally, but carefully. I rehearsed conversations before having them, anticipated reactions before expressing needs, braced for impact even in neutral spaces. That vigilance once kept me safe. It helped me survive environments where softness was punished and honesty came with consequences. But safety built on defense has an expiration date, and one day I realized I was no longer under threat, yet my body hadn't received the message. I noticed it in subtle ways: a tightening before speaking, a pause before relaxing, a reflex to explain even when no explanation was asked for. Those habits didn't mean I was broken. They meant I had adapted well to a world that no longer existed. So, I began the quiet work of letting the armor down. Not all at once, not dramatically, piece by piece. I stopped rehearsing responses to conversations that hadn't happened, stopped preparing for conflict in rooms that felt calm, stopped scanning faces for danger where none lived. At first, that felt reckless, unprotected. I worried that without defense, I would be hurt again. But something else happened. Nothing. The moment passed. The conversation ended. The day moved on, no damage, no fallout. And slowly, my body began to learn something new. Presence without vigilance. I wasn't numb. I wasn't naive. I was attentive without being guarded. That distinction mattered. Defense narrows your world. Attention expands it. I started noticing more. The tone of voices instead of their implications. The ease in moments that didn't need monitoring. The simple pleasure of being where I was without bracing for what might come next. There was relief in that. A deep, cellular relief. Because defense is exhausting. It keeps you half in the present and half in the future, always preparing for something that might never arrive. Living without defense doesn't mean abandoning boundaries. It means trusting them, trusting that you can respond if something goes wrong, trusting that you don't need to preempt harm to be safe, trusting that awareness is enough. I learned to let my shoulders rest, my jaw unclench, my breath deepen. These weren't metaphors, they were physical shifts. My nervous system was recalibrating. Safety was no longer conditional. It wasn't tied to control or prediction. It came from consistency, from showing myself, again and again, that I could handle whatever arose. I didn't need to be ready for everything. I needed to be present for what was real. That realization changed how I related to others. I listened without suspicion. I spoke without defensiveness. I allowed pauses without filling them with justification. And when disagreement arose, I didn't collapse or escalate. I stayed. That was new. Existing without defense doesn't make you passive. It makes you responsive. You're no longer fighting shadows. You're engaging with what's actually there. And what was there, most of the time, was neutral. Sometimes kind. Sometimes imperfect. Rarely dangerous. I wasn't living in a battlefield anymore. I was living in a life. Unarmed presence isn't weakness. It's confidence without aggression. It's knowing you don't need to prove strength because you've already survived its test. And in that unarmed state, something remarkable happened. I felt more alive, not heightened, not alert, alive in the quiet, grounded sense of the word. Like a body that no longer expects pain at every turn. Like a mind that trusts its own resilience. I didn't lose my edge. I lost my fear of being unprotected. And what remained was something far more durable. Ease. The kind that doesn't need defense because it no longer expects attack. Life didn't end. That was the surprising part. After all the chapters closed, after the healing, the clarity, the letting go, life didn't pause to acknowledge the work. It simply continued. I woke up the next morning and the light looked the same. The city moved at its usual pace. People went about their lives without knowing anything had settled inside me, and that was exactly right. For a long time, I believed resolution would feel like a finish line, like something definitive I could point to and say, this is where it all makes sense. But meaning doesn't arrive like that. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask to be witnessed. It integrates. I noticed it in how I moved through my days. No urgency to optimize. No need to interpret. No impulse to extract lessons from every moment. I wasn't becoming something new anymore. I was continuing as myself. There was relief in that, because becoming implies striving. Continuing implies trust. I trusted my life to unfold without supervision. I trusted myself to respond rather than prepare, to feel rather than analyze, to live rather than narrate. That trust changed the texture of my days. Time felt less segmented. Moments blended naturally. There was no pressure to mark significance. Significance was already there. In breathing, in noticing, in choosing what felt true without explaining why. I didn't need closure. I had continuity. The kind that doesn't wrap things up neatly, but carries them forward gently. I thought about how much energy I once spent trying to arrive somewhere. A better version of myself, a safer life, a future that would finally confirm I was okay. Now, I wasn't arriving. I was residing. There's a difference. Arrival is temporary. Residence is lived. I no longer waited for permission to feel settled. I didn't postpone peace until everything was resolved. Peace had become my baseline, not my reward. That didn't mean life was perfect. It meant life was workable. I could hold uncertainty without panic, disappointment without collapse, joy without suspicion. Those were quiet victories, invisible ones, but they changed everything. I understood then that the end of a story isn't silence, it's normalcy. The ability to go on without carrying everything so tightly. The ability to let days be days, some full, some empty, most unremarkable. And to know that unremarkable doesn't mean meaningless. It means stable. I didn't feel the need to summarize my life anymore. No final insight. No moral neatly stated. Just a sense that I was where I belonged, inside my life, not ahead of it. Not ahead of it. Not behind it. Not behind it. Here. If someone were to ask me now what all of this led to, I wouldn't offer an answer. I would offer presence. Because some understandings can't be spoken without shrinking them. They have to be lived. And living, finally, felt simple. Not easy, but honest. This is how it continues. Not with another chapter, not with a new lesson, but with breath after breath, day after day, a life that no longer needs to be explained. That's the ending, not an ending that closes, but one that allows everything else to keep going, quietly, naturally, as it should.